The weight of King's Landing pressed upon Eddard Stark like the thick, humid air that drifted from the sweet rot of flea bottoms refuse fires. Candle flame quivered in the hand solar, brushing golden tongues across armor stands, half-unrolled maps. The wolf-head pommel of ice sheathed on the oak table where Raven's quills lay abandoned. Through the narrow arrow slit a wan dawn tried to bloom, but gray cloud and the stink of the city choked the sky and kept the morning sullen. Ned could taste iron on his tongue, the last of Robert's blood, perhaps, lingering in the hallways. Word had come in a hush after the hour of the owl. The king lay dying, boar's tusk buried deep and festering. Rumor hurried on rumor, Robert pleading for wine, Robert howling for the godswood of Storm's End, Robert coughing crimson onto his hunting leathers. Yet it was the silence that told Ned more than any whisper. The Red Keep's corridors were too still, guards at the doors of Maegor's Holdfast too rigid, as if braced for storm surge. In that hush Littlefinger had arrived, slipper soft, a wolf's smile chased beneath the shadow of his neat beard. "My Lord Hand," Peter Baelish had said. "An unfortunate accident, yet accidents carve opportunities in the marble of fate. Shall we speak of the rock face before you, and of footholds?" His mint-sweet breath had lingered too long, and the glint in his laughing green eyes had weighed Ned like a purse of gold. Ned had dismissed him with a curt nod. Better to face a sword's edge than Littlefinger's velvet ones. But the words gnawed inside him, and when Peter bowed out, Ned poured a draught of dark ale and stared at the lion sigil pressed into the wax of Ser Barristan's hastily scrawled message. "Robert's dying. Cersei's cubs circle the throne already." A step scraped behind him. Arya, all elbows and scuffed knees, slipped in without waiting for permission. Her practiced sword of dark pine clutched like needle reborn. "Syrio says I move like a goat." She scowled. "But faster." Ned's answering smile felt brittle. "A swift goat is no small thing beyond the wall," he told her, thinking of shaggy cliff runners leaping over ice chasms. Yet even goats know when to retreat to safer heights. She frowned at that, puzzling his meaning. He beckoned her close, with the door latched, and only the faint scraping of quills somewhere beyond the corridor. Ned sank onto the cushioned bench beside the hearth. "Listen well, sweetling. The city teeters. You recall the wolf pups we saved, how the weakest might be torn when food grows scarce. King's Landing soon may become such a kennel." Arya's gray eyes widened, but pride braced her chin. "Sansa says I see monsters under every bed." "There are monsters on the beds here," Ned murmured. He smoothed her hair, tangled, unruly, stubborn as its owner. He could not speak of letters proving Joffrey's false blood, nor of Varys's hint that the queen watched him more keenly than a cat at a mousehole. But he sensed the jaws closing, when at last he dismissed Arya to fetch bread and cheese from the kitchens. "And keep to guarded paths, child." He found himself pacing. If Robert died this night, Renly would snatch at the throne, Stannis would brandish parchments and laws, Tywin would march. Oh, Tywin would march the moment Cersei bared her claws. In every scenario Ned could conjure, the Starks were pawns to be flung and broken. He turned to the narrow writing desk, where a fresh sheet waited. Quill-met parchment, scratching out lines to Ser Roderick at Winterfell. "Call the banners. Prepare the guards. The North must stand ready." Yet even as ink pooled, he thought of the promise he'd made his sister before the Tower of Joy, and the silent promise to his dead comrade Jon Arryn. Protect the innocents. Arya was innocent. Sansa too, but Sansa was entangled among the Tyrell seamstresses and Queen's courtly lessons. Removing her would summon notice before Ned had set foot beyond the Red Keep. Arya, invisible as a stable boy if she so chose, could slip through holes no lion watched. A knuckle rapped on the doorframe. Lord Varys, robed in lavender silks that rustled like dove wings, glided through. "My Lord Stark, may we speak as friends?" His eyes held gentle sorrow, yet behind the softness Ned glimpsed steel. Varys wasted few moves. Ned inclined his head, masking suspicion. "The realm rarely grants us that luxury. Truth, but I bring possibilities." His grace fades, and with him slips your own hourglass, Lord Eddard. Varys folded plump fingers. Ser Barristan reports the small council shall meet at sunset to confirm the succession. Some would name Prince Joffrey, others the gods know whom. Stannis is rightful heir, Ned said. Ah, but right seldom wears the crown when left alone in the dark. I worry for shadows. Varys's voice thinned. If you intend to act, act swiftly. And if you intend to flee, flee tonight. Ned felt the chill then, as if a door somewhere had opened on Winter. You offer me flight? I offer you choices. Varys leaned closer, whisper soft. There remains a postern gate within the southeastern wall, abandoned since Maegor's time. 2 riders may pass before dawn drums begin. Beyond lies Driftmark's old cobble road, quiet enough for wolves to tread unheard. And my guard, steel draws notice. Take only a cloak, a dagger, and the girl who carries not a banner but your blood. His breath stopped. You know of Arya. I know of many things. Varys rose, sleeves fluttering. I know also that the queen prepares a sealed order for Janos Slynt, and that Littlefinger has made promises in the dark. Promises in the dark. Ned remembered Peter's titter, the cat-like smile. For once, all threads converged plainly. Remain and risk Arya's life as hostage, or run and preserve at least one Stark from the board. I would have my daughters. Fetch Sansa, and those promises grow teeth at once. She is betrothed. She is watched. Your younger child roams freer. A father should not choose between children. Yet Winterfell needed heirs. Robb, Bran. Rickon waited half a kingdom away. Sansa, mayhap Sansa's courtesy shielded her. For Joffrey's vanity would not maim his own bride while banners still fluttered. Ned despised that reasoning and despised himself for thinking it. He inhaled smoke and candle wax. Very well. Varys bowed, as if hearing Ned's decision sealed his own fate. When the bells of matin sound, the postern will close again. I shall leave a hooded lamp near the tunnel mouth, green flame in a clay cup. Follow it, and House Stark may yet keep its head. When the eunuch departed, the room sagged into fearful quiet. Ned Stark, once lord of snow-clad Winterfell, felt smaller than the mouse hawks that wheeled over the capital's rooftops. Yet purpose stiffened his spine. He sheathed ice in its wolf-trim scabbard, slung the greatsword across his back, then thought better. The blade alone would betray him. Brothers on the wall ventured lighter than this. Ice remained. He buckled on his traveling belt instead, plain steel at his hip. Dust danced in the awakening sunbeam as he knelt at the hearth. Old gods, he whispered. Let the wind bear me north, and let the roots of Winterfell remember my name. Twilight bled along the crenellations by the time Arya slipped from the kitchens, smudged with flour and triumph. Hot Pie says I fight like a wolverine, she told Nymeria. Not the wolf, but a mangy tabby she sometimes courted with crumbs, while her bare feet pattered on flagstones. Yet the tabby fled when gold cloaks appeared at the top of the stair. Ser Marentrant's hard eyes flicked over the girl as if sizing coin. Run along to the princess. Which princess? Arya asked, pitching her voice to innocence. Do I look like a jester? The red-haired one. Sansa's with the septa, Arya lied. She darted before he could grab, taking stairs 2 at a time, weaving through scullions until briny air stung her nostrils. The gods would beckon, a pocket of green in stone desert, but outside the Hand's tower, she halted. Father waited near the fountain, cloak wrapped tight, face grave as the statues of Stark kings in the crypts. We ride, he said. No scolding for dirty feet, no lecture. Only that, the urgency in his voice prickled her skin. She followed, quick and silent, past guard posts where the sentries saw only a weary lord walking with a servant boy, past arched doors where Lannister crimson glimmered in torchlight, past the mews and stables where 2 shaggy garrons, small northern mounts ill-favored by southern knights, stood readied, saddlebags stuffed with hardtack, waterskins, and rolled cloaks. Jory Castle's harness hung on a peg, and used. Arya opened her mouth to ask, But Ned shook his head, eyes flinty. "We trust fewer tongues than fingers," he said. "Up." She scrambled astride the smaller Garen while her father swung onto the other. Moonlight silvered his beard. With reins loose, they walked the horses down a deserted postern lane, hooves muffled in old straw. The cool hush felt like Winterfell cellars. At a narrow arch half hidden by climbing ivy, Varys waited, robe the color of midnight roses. No guard, no torch, only a shallow clay cup on the ground, its oil-burning green wildfire tint. "Down the steps, my lord," whispered the eunuch. Once through the door, follow the tunnel to the river gate. A fisherman's skiff drifts on a slack rope. 7 blessings, though I doubt the crone favors gamblers. "My thanks," Ned said, but before he passed, Varys caught his sleeve. "I too stand upon a board, Lord Stark. May our moves buy innocent lives." Then Ned and Arya were descending. Salt damp carved the walls, and torch holes gaped empty. Arya smelled mold, old water, a rat's skitter. She gripped the pommel, knuckles white. "Father," she murmured when darkness thickened. "What of Sansa?" His voice echoed, hollow. "I will fetch her in time. First we make the river." She heard the lie but swallowed it. If Syrio spoke true, that fear cuts deeper than swords, then she must not flinch. The passage angled downward. Somewhere water lapped stone. Ned's boots splashed. Torchlight, no, moonlight through a grate, showed a small quay and a tethered skiff rocking like a cradle. They led the horses aboard, Arya clinging to her mount's mane, heart drumming. Ned cast off. The current grabbed them, silent as a thief. Above, the bulk of the city rose like a slumbering leviathan, dotted by lantern eyes. Only when the skiff bumped a reed-choked inlet did Ned breathe fully. He lashed the Garen's lead ropes, then crouched beside Arya under the low gunwale. "We are ghosts tonight," he told her. "No names.
No banners."
"Remember." She nodded. "I remember." North at last was more than a word. It was a direction, a promise lying beyond the swirl of the Blackwater, the Reach roads, the Neck's mists. Yet first they must survive the night. The Garens stamped uneasily as Ned pulled the skiff along mudflats, keeping to the shadows of willow boughs. They grounded near a deserted stretch where broken pilings marked an old smuggler's dock. From here a forgotten cobble track wound toward Rosby and, farther, Duskendale. Few would guess Starks would flee into Crownland's villages rather than straight for the King's Road. On the riverbank, Ned paused, staring back. King's Landing's walls glowed faintly red. Could Sansa see the same red from her bedchamber? Did she clutch Lady's lost leash and wonder why Father had not kissed her goodnight? Ned's resolve near shattered. One ride to the gate of the gods, a word to loyal guard, and he might yet reclaim her. But loyalty was a blade too, Janos Slint's gold cloaks, Littlefinger's silver, Cersei's fear. He felt them circling already, hungry as wolves at a fallow moon. "Must hurry," Arya urged, voice small. He set jaw to task. In the red keeps hidden solar, Cersei Lannister paced around Robert's empty hunting horn, nails clicking on tiger oak. Littlefinger lounged by the wine tray, swirling a goblet. "He flees," she hissed. "The wolf smells snares." Baelish's smile barely twitched. "Good. Cornered wolf may bite. A running wolf merely bleeds. You assured me Slint's men had eyes." "They do, your grace," Peter said, polishing non-existent dust from his velvet doublet. "Eyes can be shut. With coin they can open again in wiser directions. Regardless, the King's seal grants you regency." Ned Stark brandishing truths halfway to Rosby changes nothing. The Watch will hunt him. And Arya? A dragonfly compared to the wolf. Let them buzz. Littlefinger sipped. "Give me leave, and I will spin this into profit." Cersei stopped at the window. The Blackwater glittered under a half-moon. "Bring me his head, or bring me Sansa's obedience. One will leash the north. As you command." Peter bowed, eyes alight with private mirth. Dawn broke over salt flats when Ned reined in beside a crumbling milestone where moss obscured chiseled letters. Arya slumped in the saddle, exhausted but proud. She had not given a single cry during the night's ride, yet hunger gurgled in her belly, and father's face looked carved from frost. They dismounted under an alder. Ned shared almonds and dried cherries, coaxing Arya to sip water in slow swallows. Birds fluted overhead, and the eastern sky burned rose. For the first time since leaving Winterfell, Arya felt a shard of wonder. The world stretched bigger than any courtyard. Ned unrolled a scrap of parchment, a rough map of hamlets and woods heavy in his memory from Robert's rebellion days. We skirt Duskendale, a void lord sworn to the crown. From there, we hire passage on a salt trader bound for White Harbor. With tide and wind, 8 days to the north. What if they know our faces? Arya asked. He brushed a thumb across the dirt on her cheek. You will be Arya, my squire, and I? He paused, considering the gray in his beard, the northern pallor. I shall be a master-at-arms dismissed from Dragonstone's garrison. That's a lie. She tried to grin. Better if I'm the master-at-arms. Perhaps by the time we reach home. They rode again, following goat paths through pine and fern. Ned guided by landmarks. A coppice shaped like a mailed gauntlet. A creek bending west where trout flashed silver. Noon found them in the ruins of an old watchtower, stones blanketed by ivy. There they rested, whispering little, listening to distant hoofbeats that might have been farmers or Lannister outriders. With daylight waning, they crossed fields golden with late barley. A scarecrow hung crooked, carrion crows pecking its straw ribs, and Arya scowled. Crows shouldn't bully scarecrows. Crows feast on weakness, Ned replied, glimpsing lessons for kingdoms in that tatter of burlap. Atop King's Landing's gates, bells tolled for Robert Baratheon. The city roared with grief and wine, but beneath the roar slithered rumor. The hand gone missing. Gold cloaks scouring brothels and pot shops. The queen shuddered with Pycelle drafting proclamations by candlestick. Sansa Stark, pale as winter wheat, knelt before the Septri altar, while Septa Mordane whispered comfort that felt brittle as dried leaves. Joffrey strutted in crimson brocade, the weight of a fatherless throne swelling his chest. Traitors flee, mother says, he told Sansa that night, eyes gleaming like wet garnets. Your lord father will bend knee soon or break. The promise hung, poisonous honey. 3 nights into flight, Ned and Arya climbed a shale ridge overlooking Duskendale's bay. Lanterns bobbed among anchored cogs. Sea wind carried tar and whale oil. Ned crouched in shadow, measuring. Patrol fires burned at the port gate. Yet beyond lay a merchant vessel painted dull green, figurehead a flaking mermaid. Small, swift. In a smoky tavern near the quay, Ned found the captain. Tycho Torrent, a narrow man with the nervous blink of a sparrow hawk. A dragon's worth of silver stags slid across the table won him silence. We haul tallow north for candlemongers, Torrent rasped. But White Harbor sets tariffs this season. Silver doubles tariffs, Ned said, and coin buys more coin when invested in Wintertown. Tycho's eyes flitted to Arya, disguised in boiled leather jerkin, hair hacked uneven to her shoulders. Your lad fights. Fence? Arya piped too eagerly. She tapped her hilt. Tycho laughed. Then the lad may swab decks and spar with cabin boys until we make port. By Moon's crest, they were stowed among barrels of pungent tallow. The cog slipped its mooring like a cat through curtains, sails belly-taut with wind blowing ever north. Arya sat cross-legged on a coil of rope, sneezing at the reek yet grinning each time the deck rolled beneath her. Ned stood at the rail, salt spray flecking his brow. The south coast dwindled, a smudge of candlelight and smoke. He'd traded the greatest city in the realm for a deck of pitching boards, and felt lighter for it. Still, danger sailed behind, invisible. Ravens flew faster than ships. If Cersei's letters reached Lord Manderley before the Saltseed did, White Harbor's gates might shut or worse. Ned had friends there. Old Wylis Manderley had sworn fealty, but gold could sway the hungry even in the north. One problem at a time, he reminded himself. The hull groaned like old timbers in Winterfell's great hall. He pictured the weirwood heart tree, red leaves whispering in northern wind. Hold fast, it seemed to say. Roots go deep, days blended, sailcloth snapping, gulls shrieking, soup thin as river water. Ned sparred Arya with willow canes at dawn, taught her to drop a shoulder, to feel balance in shifting deck planks. At night they lay under rough blankets, listening to Tycho's helmsman sing ballads of the Grey King. Stars wheeled, cold and clear. The morning they sighted White Harbor's watchtower, Ned's gut tightened. Torches flickered high on the walls. An honor guard or a warning. The Saltseed's dinged bell clanged. Signaling horns answered from shore. Something stirs, Tycho muttered. Harbor master boards most ships, but this be too many men. Longboats rowed out, decks crowded with city watch in silver-piped cloaks. Ned ushered Arya below, but she squeezed his arm. I can hide.
No.
Stay where I see you. Beneath the cabin hatch, he made her sling a sack of tallow over thin shoulders, a deckhand among deckhands. He donned a wool cap, pulled low. Ice would not help here, words must. Boots thudded overhead. Voices barked orders. Ned climbed to meet them. A captain of the watch, cheeks windraw, scanned the deck. By command of Lord Wyman Manderley, all vessels submit to inspection. We seek a traitor fleeing Southron justice. Traitor, Tycho blinked. Tallow smells bad, but it's no treason. The captain's gaze landed on Ned. Eyes narrowed. Name and business. John of the Fingers, Ned lied, using the false name chosen days ago. Master at arms turned deckhand. He offered the work order scroll Tycho had forged. It bore a crude seal. The captain broke wax, brow creasing. Beside him, a younger sergeant scanned the crew. When the sergeant's stare rested on Arya, bowed under the sack, Ned's blood iced. Yet the sergeant only grinned at the child's glower and turned away. Minutes stretched. Wind rattled ropes. Ned heard gulls cry like mocking gods. At last the captain handed back the scroll. You may dock, but none leave the quay until further word. Why the fuss? Tycho asked. The hand of the late king, the captain said. Rumor claims he plots rebellion. If he sets foot in White Harbor, we shall know. When the watch departed, Tycho exhaled. That wolf lord friend of yours beats a loud drum.
Netv.
Atched the longboats vanish into gray chop. He'd hoped northern soil meant safety. Yet Circe's reach stretched even here. They must slip the nets before they closed. He gathered Arya, voice low. We take the horses tonight. Ride for the barrows, then to Winterfell by hidden trails. She nodded, fearless. Yet fate wound its thread tight. That dusk, as dockworkers tied mooring lines, a black-barred man in fine will paused on the pier, eyes keen beneath the brim of a fisher's cap that failed to hide blue velvet doublet. Peter Baelish loved few risks greater than those gilded by chaos. As the Saltseed's gangplank lowered, Littlefinger smiled like a cat greeting canaries. The gulls above White Harbor shrieked like rusted hinges, wheeling low over the Saltseed's yardarm as her crew secured reluctant lines to pilings slick with algae. Eddard Stark watched every knot, every lantern, the movement of each watchman on the piers. Yet his breath caught when he glimpsed. No, only thought he glimpsed. A familiar tilt of a narrow chin beneath a fisher's cap among the dockside bustle. The man disappeared behind a wagon stacked with seal oil casks. Ned's heart thudded a single warning beat. Littlefinger? Or merely a shade conjured by dread? He forced the vision aside and hissed to Arya in the shadows between stacked barrels. We slip aft. When the watch looks bowward, we move. They timed each motion to the calls of bosun pipes, scurrying over the gangplank just as a burly stevedore cursed a knotted hawser. Salt mist cloaked them for 3 precious breaths. Then they were ashore, boots slapping damp cedar planks of the wharf. Arya bent beneath her tallow sack. Ned stooped like a laborer whose back had known too many storms. A gull settled on the rail, blinking black eyes after them, but made no sound. The south gate of White Harbor's fish market yawned ahead, a low arch trimmed in worn marble. 2 city watchmen in gleaming half-helms lounged nearby, halberds resting points down. Ned guided Arya toward a side passage where slaughter runoff stained the cobbles dark. The stench of cod guts seethed, thick enough to mask a wolf's own musk. If they could round the corner and reach the tannery lanes, horses waited under false names at the Stinking Goose Inn. A merchant's shout cut across the din. "Hold you there, boy!" Ned's breath stalled. Arya slowed. A fishmonger, arms slick with scales, beckoned with a red-rimmed hand. "You dropped your lashing line." Arya patted her waist. Ned saw the clever girl's gaze flicker. Then she darted back, scooped a frayed length of rope from the planks, and flashed a gap-toothed grin that melted the man's suspicion. She bobbed her head and they hurried on. But Ned felt eyes upon them, eyes too sharp, too knowing. As they ducked under the arch, a silhouette detached from a column of basket sellers. Peter Baelish appeared as if molded from river fog. Fisher's cap now tucked beneath an arm, velvet gleaming blue-black beneath drab cloak. His smile was a blade unsheathed. "Why, Lord Stark," he drawled, keeping a polite distance yet blocking the narrow alley Ned had intended. "Fancy meeting ghosts in a city of mermaids. I grant you my word, ghost or no, I bear only tidings, no steel." Ned's hand twitched to the dagger hidden beneath his jerkin. "You've hunted far for tidings, Baelish." Peter shrugged, eyes dancing. "I wagered the sea roads against the King's Road, a gambler's fancy. The Queen's ravens shriek so loudly they near deafen the realm. I sought quieter winds." Arya shifted, scrabbling her free hand toward needle's hilt concealed under her oversized jerkin. Littlefinger's gaze flicked to her, warming with amused recognition, then back to Ned. "Still playing at Squire's, little wolf? You've grown," he murmured, and Ned's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" Ned asked. "What I always want. Advantage." Littlefinger toyed with the cap's brim. "Robert is dead. Joffrey sits the throne. Stannis howls. Renly struts. Lord Tywin sharpens claws. The board spills blood already, yet one corner remains, inconveniently white." He tipped his head. "I offer you a path to turn that corner crimson on your behalf rather than the lion's." "No more webs," Ned said. "Step aside." "I weave no webs here, my lord. I cut one." Peter's voice softened. "Sansa is safe yet frightened. The Queen parades her innocence before the court daily, but a hostage shines brightest when still alive. You, Lord Stark, are valuable because she lives. Leave Westeros entirely and she may yet wed. North and South spared war. Remain in play, your banners rally, blood flows." Ned's temper flared. "You speak of banners? Had you an honest bone, you would have told me of Robert's bastard truth when first you dangled your loyalties." Peter's smile thinned. "And ruin the game? Better to deal cards until the table breaks." Steel whispered as Arya shifted again. Ned laid a calming palm on her shoulder. "We will not bargain." He stepped forward. "Move or be moved." Littlefinger sighed. "Stubborn as ever. Very well. But another spider crawls behind you tonight, and his bite kills quicker than mine." He inclined his head to Arya. "Keep the sword sharp, child. Winter is hungry for fools." Then he melted into the crowd, swallowed by swirls of fish smoke and gull cries. Arya growled low. "We should have skewered him." "Not here," Ned muttered, scanning alleys. "Come." They passed butcher's stalls where flayed cod bellies shone pearl white, then ducked between sagging sheds until the harbor's roar faded. A labyrinth of tar-stained cottages pressed close, windows glowing faint orange. Somewhere, a maiden sang a lullaby out of tune. Elsewhere, dogs barked. Ned's breath eased only when the mossy sign of the Stinking Goose swung overhead, carved goose head drooling chipped paint. Inside, rush lamps flickered over rough-hewn benches and barrels repurposed as tables. The smell of boiled hops fought with tallow and sweat. A brawny innkeep with cauliflower ears glanced up. Ned offered a silver stag. "Our mounts." "In the backyard, master." "Jared," the man said, recalling the name from coin and prior arrangement. "Fed and watered. Room at the loft is ready."
Ned nodded.
"We ride after moonrise." The innkeep grunted. "Storm coming, Smell it in the gutters. Roads'll suck wheels like quicksand. All the better for slipping tracks, Ned replied. They climbed a narrow stair to a loft thatched in straw. Moonlight seeped through gaps, painting lines across two bedrolls laid beside a hay window. Arya collapsed onto hers, but sleep stayed away, pupils wide. Ned sat cross-legged, oil lamp low between them. "Why didn't we kill Littlefinger?" she asked. "Because killing is never so simple," Ned said. "A dead man's secrets still breathe. We need no horn sounding our presence now. But he'll trail us. Aye, yet he too walks edges. Cersei grants him coin, not love. He may dance whichever way spares his skin."
Ned sighed.
"We must outrun dancers and lions alike." Arya hugged her knees. "If he hurts Sansa, he won't, so long as he wants leverage." Ned's words tasted like brine. "But I will have her back." "How?" "By bringing truth north where it can't be smothered." He drew from the satchel the parchment bearing Robert's seal. Robert's final decree naming Ned protector of the realm, a document Cersei had snatched and likely burned. But Ned's own copy, penned by Ser Barristan's earnest quill, remained. "When winter banners rally, the North will not kneel to false blood." Arya traced the seal with a dirty thumb. "Will Robb march? Only if forced." Yet Ned knew his eldest. Indignation burned bright in that young heart. Once ravens carried word of treachery. Robb would not sit idle in Winterfell's high seat. The thought twisted Ned's gut. An hour passed. Wind moaned under eaves like a wolf's distant howl. Ned extinguished the lamp, left only red coals in a brazier. "Sleep now. We ride hard tomorrow." He lay but did not sleep. Memories of Lyanna's fevered bed and promises paid in blood hammered through the dark. Moonrise lathered White Harbor's slate roofs in silver foam. Ned led Arya through the Goose's rear yard where two sturdy garrons pawed ground, saddlebags bulging with moss-cured jerky, oatcakes, and a bundle wrapped in sailcloth. No, the giant blade remained behind. The bundle hid a store of silver and the bastard letter, proof of Cersei's lie. They mounted. A storm indeed brewed. Thunder rumbled to the west. Ned guided their horses down a muddy lane, then cut through the yard of a shuttered wine cellar. At an iron-bound postern arching under the city wall, a single sleepy guard accepted a few more silver stags without bribe becoming alarm. The wooden gate creaked open. Wild marsh grasses waved beyond. They slipped into night's damp mouth. Fields unrolled between hedgerows, sparkling with dew under the rising storm glare. They traveled at a steady trot, hooves squelching softly. By first thundercrack, White Harbor's torchlit crown had dwindled to an amber smear behind them. Yet Ned's unease thickened. Littlefinger would have whispered to someone, if only to hedge bets. And the harbor watch had eyes beyond coin. Twice before dawn they veered off the main cart track to hide among elderberry hedges while riders thundered past. Silhouettes of mailed shoulders, cloaks flapping black. Not city watch, they carried no harbor badges, but free riders sworn to coins as well as crowns. Toward dawn, cold drizzle fell. Ned found a foxburrow cut into a clay bluff and guided Arya into shallow shelter. They cloaked the horses and crouched by a sputtering ember candle, sharing dried cherries. Rain pattered like hail against leaves. Arya shivered, but excitement sharpened her grin. "Feels like the crypt tunnel," she whispered, a memory of Whispermaze games played between Winterfell's dead.
"Listen," Ned murmured.
Hooves again, but slower. Voices argued over the rumble of rain. He peered past fern fronds and saw 3 riders on the cart track. 2 cloaked in black hoods, 1 in finer cloak trimmed sable. Lanterns swung from saddle horns. "Swear I saw a wolf on the ship's list," barked a hood. "Father says bring them back and the queen doubles the purse." Sneering response. "Manderly plays coy. Bet the old walrus has them tucked under his blubber. Why think they'd bolt inland?" The third voice, low and dangerous, cut through. "I'll not return empty-handed. We ride until we find corpses or collars. The gilded dwarf's gold spends sweet anywhere." The speaker turned slightly. Lightning flashed, and Ned recognized the clean-shaven jaw of Ser Marantrant. Kingsguard cloak now hidden beneath a traveler's storm silk. Rage pooled hot, but Ned held still. Arya's fingers found his. He felt them tremble not from fear but fury. They waited, breath shallow, until hoofbeats bled into rain. Dawn's corpse-pale light smeared the horizon. Ned mapped in his head. West lay Barrowton in 3 days' ride. Beyond, Moat Cailin and the next bogs. But riders would search the King's Road crossing the White Knife. Instead, he pointed their course northwest through sheep country. Abandoned crofts, barrows older than kingdoms. Few patrolled those rolling grave hills. They broke cover and pressed on, skirts of storm cloud trailing overhead. By midday, they forded a stream swollen to nipping at girths. Arya laughed when her boots soaked through. Ned offered only a tired smile. On the second evening, they reached a valley where herds of aurochs once grazed, now overgrown with lavender weeds. A ring fort ruin crowned a hillock, tumbled stone and an ancient heart tree stump in the center. They made camp there. Ned taught Arya to twist dry nettle into rope and snare rabbits. She returned at dusk with 2 lean connies and a spraying smile. They cooked on hot stones, steam sweet with herbs Ned scrounged. Night wrapped them in cicada hum. Arya practiced footwork, darting between mossy stones, wooden sword tracing shrinking arcs. Ned corrected her hips, her guard. Each parry whispered like leaves, but peace proved brittle. Before false dawn, wolves howled, real wolves. Ned woke, hand on dagger. The horses stamped. Something heavy padded through brush, circled, then vanished. At sunrise, tracks revealed paws big as tankards. Direwolf? Or just a fat timber wolf? Either way, omen enough. They broke camp. Hills climbed, heath purple with flowers. Mid-slope, Ned paused. Northward, gray haze cloaked the horizon, but he could almost feel Winterfell's chill blowing. One more week of hard riding could bring them home. Yet the game board moved behind them. They discovered it in a hamlet called Crow's Meadow when they stopped for barley bread. A rustic and displayed a royal scroll nailed beside the door. Edict from King Joffrey I, naming Eddard Stark traitor, commanding subjects to seize him and his bastard whelp Arya Waters. The reward, 10,000 golden dragons. Arya spat. Waters? I'm no bastard. Lannister words, Ned said, though anger smoldered. Reward that high would turn hungry peasants into hounds. They dared not linger. His map, memory-etched, offered a desperate alternative. The Flint Cliffs Trail, an abandoned smuggler's pass hugging the coast, pounded by tides, unreachable by horse carts. It would add 3 days but flank watch posts. He decided on the spot. They rode crossfields, paying farmers in silence. Coin left on fences for oats taken. On the dusk of the 5th day, sea thunder greeted them, crashing against limestone crags. Air smelled briny, alive. A narrow track, little more than goat path, wound perilous along cliff face. Ned led. Arya followed, eyes shining despite dread. Below, waves smashed cold white spray upward, soaking them. At one point, the trail crumbled, forcing them to dismount and lead mount single file across a wind-carved shelf wide as a man's outstretched arms. Arya whispered a prayer to the old gods. Ned muttered one to the new as well. 2 nights they marched thus, hearts hammering with every shale slide. They camped in sea caves stained with salt crystals, listening to tides gnaw rock like dragons chewing bone. Ned fixed torches, taught Arya to whistle low 3 notes if trouble, 2 if safe. Dark water luminesced faintly, revealing shoals of silver fish swirling luminous ribbons. On the 3rd dawn, crossing a windswept ridge, Ned spied a lonely tower inland. A watch beacon of House Flint abandoned since Aerys' reign. Smoke rose beside it. Scouts? He studied through a spyglass borrowed from Tycho Torrent. 3 figures in cloaks the color of old straw tending a cookfire. Their horses bore no sigils, but Ned recognized the posture of one, tall, 1 shoulder higher than the other, favoring an old joust wound. Harwin, Winterfell rider, once squire to Hullen. A rush of relief. He signaled with a piece of mirror. The man shaded eyes, then rose, waving precise arcs. the secret hail of the north. Moments later they greeted at the base of the hill. Harwin knelt. "My lord, we feared the worst. Lord Robb has called banners to Winterfell. 12,000 swords, near ready to march south upon word of your capture."
Ned swallowed.
"He must hold. War helps no Stark today." Harwin's brow knitted. The River Lords ask the same. Host Tully's health falters. He wants justice for his daughter's sake. Too soon. Messages must fly before swords do. Ned considered. "Ride with me to Winterfell. We need to reach Robb before rash vows become graves." But Harwin shook head. 100 leagues of bog. Riders at every ford. We must cut through the Carhold track. Safer but long. He glanced to Arya, pride glowing. The young wolf cub grows claws. Arya grinned fiercely. They set northeast with Harwin's 2 companions, Garrett and Palla, seasoned outriders. More men meant more eyes, but also louder tracks. Still, Ned felt strength return with each hoofbeat on familiar soil. Soon gray pines replaced salt grass. Ravens croaked overhead. Frost gleamed on morning ferns. August's breath carried hints of first frost this far north. They skirted villages loyal to Carhold, sleeping in shepherd huts or under branches carpeted by needles. Garrett hunted deer, bringing back haunch smoked over juniper. One night, while the men took turns on watch, Arya watched Ned pen a letter by fireglow. "For Robb," she asked. "For your mother. To let her know we ride." He finished with the direwolf seal, pressed via a carved pine stamp, and tied it with gray ribbon. "Will ravens fly faster than we ride?" "Ravens fly swift, but fear drives men swifter," Ned answered. He stared at flames. "If war comes, remember, victory is not always glory. Sometimes honor lies in peace." Arya poked the fire. "Sansa says knights sing of glory, but Syrio says a cat may defeat a lion if claws are sharp." "What say you?" she thought. "I'll keep claws sharp but pick battles wisely. That, little one, is wisdom many grown lords lack." The next day, they reached hills where the King's Road slanted north again. Smoke plumes on horizon told of marching camps.
Ned hesitated.
Harwin listened to ground, frown deepening. "Heavy host, my lord. Could be Bolton men moving to join Robb. Could be Lannister outriders chasing bounties. We cannot gamble." Ned guided them toward the Wolfswood's southern eaves, dense forest shielding Winterfell. There, paths seldom trod by outsiders twisted among towering sentinel trees. Under those dark boughs, memories thickened. The smell of sap, the hush of moss underfoot, the distant howl of dire wolves after dusk. Arya inhaled like she'd reached a long-lost room. "Feels like home already," she whispered. They camped beneath a deadfall shaped like a dragon's spine. Rain sifted through needles, tapping a lullaby. That night Ned dreamed of the crypts. He walked past stone kings, each whispering his name, until he stood before Lioness' statue weeping blood. She opened her stone mouth and said, "Promise me, Ned." And the ceiling cracked, letting in Lannister lions pouring molten gold. He woke slick with sweat, hand gripping dagger. Arya slept curled wolf-tight, unaware. Dawn crept gray. 2 days from Winterfell, they found signs of other travelers. Boot prints, ash circles, broken branches. Garrett studied them. Men in plate, 6 maybe, heading same direction. Scouts, Ned guessed. He prayed they were northern, but caution reigned. They advanced slower, ceremonial calls of thrush signaled each mile. Approaching the last river's ford at twilight, they spied banners across water. A battle standard of red leech on pink field, House Bolton. Ned's heart sank. 50 mounted men sat watch, pale armor etched like flayed skin. Their captain, Ser Karen Polwer, conversed with a cloaked outsider, Ser Marin Trant. A chest of coin gleamed between them. Arya hissed through teeth. Ned pulled her behind an oak trunk. Harwin crouched near. Flayed men serving Trant? Gods help us. Ned surveyed. The ford spanned 30 yards shallow, but banks open. Impossible to cross unseen. Upstream, Whitewater roared, but stones offered risky footing for horses. "We double back," Garrett whispered. "No," Ned decided. "Too late. Our trail leads here. They would hunt. We must outwit, not outrun." He eyed the forest gloom. "Boltons fear what they cannot see. We give them ghosts." That night, under sickle moon, Ned and his small band prepared. Harwin gathered moss, soaked it in rendered fat to craft smoke bombs. Arya collected fallen wasp nests. Ned wrapped them in burlap, leaving a cord fuse. Garrett coated arrowheads with nettle-itch resin. Palla prepared the horses at a hidden bend upstream. Before first light, fog blanketed Ree. For lo, Ned moved like shadow, Arya at his heel. They crawled to Treeline above the Bolton camp where guards huddled around dying fires. Trance-ornate destriers stamped near the coin chest. The Kingsguard dozed inside a leather pavilion. Ned lit the moss bombs. Gray smoke hissed outward, curling along ground like living mist. Guards stirred, coughing. Then Ned hurled the wasp nests into their midst. When sparks reached papery comb, furious insects exploded forth. A buzzing storm. Chaos erupted. Shouts, stamping boots, horses screaming. Harwin's men loosed arrows into cookfires. Sparks flew into tents. Flames licked damp canvas, spitting smoke that mingled with fog. Through the bedlam, Ned led Arya and the horses across the shallow ford yards north. Unseen amid curling haze, Ser Marin's voice shrieked, high and outraged, "Form ranks! Find them, fools!" Steel clanged. A man splashed into water, but by the time Bolton soldiers rallied, only footprints remained. They galloped hard into the wolfswood. Morning sun pierced fog in white blades. Ned felt old bones ache, but joy kindle. Fewer than 50 leagues remained. Home called. Winterfell's towers rose at last, dark silhouettes against violet dusk. Smoke drifted from mead hall chimneys. Direwolf banners snapped atop ramparts. Horns sounded as gate sentries spotted their approach. Ned's throat closed at the sight of gray stone walls kissed by first frost, of the gods wood canopy arching behind like guardian arms. The gates opened before them. Maester Luwin hurried, robes fluttering like puffin wings. Tears shone as he beheld them. "My lord, my lady," his voice broke. "We feared ravens lied." Robb appeared then, taller, face leaner than Ned remembered. A sheathed longsword hung at his hip, wolf head pommel. He stood rigid, jaw trembling.
Ned dismounted.
Father and son embraced fiercely, no words. Arya broke from saddle and barreled into Bran's waiting arms. Bran perched in his wheeled sledge, eyes widened with wonder. Rickon darted out too, shaggy hair, shouting, "Arya! Arya!" Shaggy Dog the dire wolf bounded, tail a metronome. The courtyard filled with cheers, yet a shadow fell. Catelyn Stark stepped from archway, grief and relief warring in her face. She kissed Ned, tears spilling. "I prayed to every god," she whispered. Ned drew her aside at once. "Where is Sansa?" Catelyn's expression darkened. "Held in King's Landing still. Robb rallies to free her. Lord Greatjon, Glover, Umber all gather." Ned's gaze swept the yard. Thousands of men drilled, smiths hammering. Banners of river and mountain houses already speared ground. War perched like a raven on Winterfell's rooftops. He faced Robb. "My son, disband half this host. War now is war on the Queen's terms. We fight when ground favors us, not lions." Robb's brow nodded, but he nodded after a breath. "As you command, father. Yet word rides that Tywin advances on the Riverlands. We cannot sleep through fire at Tully Door."
Ned exhaled.
"We plan, then strike." He raised the parchment of Robert's decree. "We wield truth sharper than swords." The lords gathered in the great hall that night. Greatjon, Galbart Glover, Lady Meage Mormont, Rickard Karstark, and more. Candles flickered over mead horns and plates of venison. Ned rose, voice carrying. "Robert Baratheon, by his own hand, named me protector until his rightful heir, Stannis Baratheon, should claim the Iron Throne. The Queen destroyed one copy, Here stands another. He unrolled the parchment. Wax seal shone crimson. She calls me traitor, but true treason sits the throne with incest blood. I will send this to every corner of Westeros. Murmurs rippled. Mej Mormont thumped the table. I pledge to a king, not a boy of queen's incest. Great John roared approval, but Rickard Karstark glowered. Talk means naught if the Lannisters march. My sons thirst for vengeance for their cousins slain at the Trident by Jaime's hand. We will have it, yet not blindly, Ned answered. He produced a second letter. Word to Dragonstone offering alliance to Stannis. Word to Renly reminding loyalty. He inhaled. And word to Tywin. Release my daughter unharmed and stand trial for your house's crimes, or face the fury of the North. Laughter erupted. Fury of the North? Against Golden Lions? Ned's voice cut through. Make no mistake, we are no longer pawns. The realm will hear the truth, from Dorne to the Wall. And truth may yet unseat a false king without drowning fields in blood. Silence followed, broken by Robb. Father speaks wisdom, yet if swords must cross, we fight united under the direwolf. Chairs scraped as lords knelt, fists pounding chests. For the North, they roared. Days blurred into council meetings, raven dispatches, troop drills. Arya resumed lessons with Castle Master-at-Arms Ser Roderick, but slipped nightly into Godswood to practice water dance footwork under red leaves dripping early frost. Ned oversaw ravens bearing copies of Robert's decree, each escorted by riders to First Maester stations. But winter's calm shattered a fortnight later. A grim raven arrived from River Run. River Run under siege, King Tywin's host numbering 20,000, the Riverlord's call to arms. Worse, Sansa paraded on ramparts of Harrenhal, Jaime's laughter echoing across fires. A message cruel and clear. The Great Hall erupted with calls for immediate march. Ned stood heavy-hearted at high seat. We cannot abandon Tully blood, he conceded, but we march with care. That night he sought counsel beneath the heart tree. Snowflakes drifted, first of the season. He knelt, pressed palm to weirwood roots. Lyanna, he whispered to memory, I kept one promise by saving your son. Let me keep another, to shield innocence. He felt wind stir, voice of leaves replying in silence. Winter is coming. Footsteps parted moss. Catelyn emerged, cloaked in shadow. You cannot fight lions with parchment, she said. I know. He rose, brushing snow from knees. Yet swords alone cannot win peace. If Stannis takes throne by law, the realm may accept verdict. Our duty is to see him crowned, then demand sisters return. Catelyn's eyes shone. And if Stannis proves stone-hearted, then the North remembers. Ned's gaze hardened. We guard our own. She stepped close, rested head on his chest. I fear for Sansa, for all our children. As do I. He kissed her hair. Fear guides caution, but we act with honor or not at all. A twig snapped beyond the clearing. Arya. She hesitated, then strode forth. Take me when you march, she said, voice trembling yet resolute. I can help. I'm quick.
I'm quiet.
Catelyn began to protest, but Ned raised a hand. He crouched before Arya. Your task is here. Watch over Bran and Rickon. Protect Winterfell. I want to fight. Fight here. He pressed needle reclaimed days earlier into her hands. Defend our home. A wolf pack survives because some guard the den. Tears glimmered, but she nodded. I will make Syrio proud. And your father. Preparations accelerated. The northern host split. Robb led the main strength south to Riverrun. Ned rode east with a vanguard toward Moat Cailin, intent on parley with Stannis at Dragonstone via White Harbor Fleet. Ravens flew to Baratheon banners telling of incest kings. A storm of politics brewed louder than winter gales. On the morning the East March left Winterfell, snowflakes swirled in frightened flocks. Ned wore mail beneath stark gray cloak, sword long sister on hip, lighter than ice but northern forged. Harwin and Palla rode behind, 50 picked men. Atop the gatehouse, Arya stood with Bran, both waving until riders vanished into forest mists. Ned felt their gaze like warm torches on his back. Miles south, at Harrenhal's scorched halls, Sansa Stark knelt before Queen Cersei, reciting court verses while Ser Meryn stood guard. Littlefinger watched, hands steepled. "The pieces move," he murmured like a prayer. Yet the board grows strange when wolves refuse their squares. Cersei smiled a lioness smile. "Wolves may run, but nets tighten. When they return, we make pelts." Peter's eyes glittered. "Unless they learn to weave nets of their own." He thought of Ned Stark riding east with parchments and honor, of lords rallying to truth rather than fear. He had bet on chaos, but chaos, it seemed, now wore a wolf's quiet gaze and a girl's sharp blade. On the dusk of that same day, ravens reached Old Town, Storm's End, even High Garden, each scroll bearing Robert's seal, each declaring Joffrey false. Lords gathered by candle glow, brows furrowing. Across the realm, whispers grew. Bastards with golden hair, a queen's sin, a king's lies. Doubt seeped through mortar and stone, and in the Red Keep, King Joffrey threw a tantrum that cracked golden goblets against walls while Pycelle trembled and Tywin's newly arrived envoy clenched jaw. "Bring me Stark's head," the boy king screamed. But heads are harder to take when truth becomes shield and sword both. Weeks passed. Ned's vanguard reached White Harbor anew, this time to cheers. Lord Wyman manderly apologized for earlier edict. He had feigned obedience to buy time. His shipyard prepared a fleet to ferry men to Dragonstone. Yet word from sea scouts troubled them. Stannis used the time to build fleet of his own, and now prepared to sail against King's Landing. Time dwindled. Ned penned a final plea to Stannis. Meet under banner of truce at Cape Wrath. Wyman dispatched fastest galley. While they waited, Ned walked the harbor wall each dawn, wind whipping hair. One gray morning, as gulls shrieked overhead, a horn blared. Sail on horizon, but not Baratheon stag Bolton pink. Courier ship. Ned received its rider in Wyman's throne room. The man, gaunt, eyes haunted, knelt. Message for Lord Eddard Stark. Ned unfolded blood-stained parchment. "Father, they will kill me soon unless you come to King's Landing alone and swear fealty. I beg you, for Sansa's life and the realm's peace. Joffrey Baratheon." Below, another hand had written, "Your daughter still lives. Choose." Signed in elegant flourish, Tywin Lannister. Catelyn's face when she read it would haunt Ned forever. Yet his reply came clear. "We march not to bend." He turned to Wyman. "Ready your ships. We sail with dawn tide." Harwin frowned. "To Dragonstone?" "To Dragonstone first, then to justice." Ned looked at the parchment one last time, then fed it to brazier flame. "Sansa lives as long as she is needed, and we will make her freedom needful indeed." As the paper curled black, Ned Stark felt winter truly settle. Honor had led him to flight. Now it would guide him into fire. Beside him, Arya's shadow stretched long in the brazier's glow, thin, sharp, unbroken. Somewhere miles of land and sea away, Sansa might feel that same heat and no hope still burned. The storm outside battered shutters. Yet Ned's voice, when he spoke to assembled captains, carried steady as north wind, "Hoist sails. The realm will learn that when the wolf bears truth, no lion's roar can drown it." And thus the pieces moved again. Ships creaking under gray banners, ravens crossing bloody skies, knights sharpening blades in torchlit tents. War would come, yes, but on Stark terms, with parchment ready to brandish, and steel prepared to bite only if honor demanded. But as lightning split the harbor sky, somewhere in the belly of one salt-seed sister ship, Arya Stark honed needle against whetstone. Each stroke sang a promise. The pack survives, and winter remembers every debt. A sleet-flecked dawn broke over White Harbor's outer roads, gray sea merging with gray sky until horizon vanished in a pall of winter vapor. The Merman's Pride, broad-beamed flagship of Lord Wyman's hastily raised fleet, strained against her anchor like a hound eager for the hunt. Crane-rigged yards creaked, canvas snapping as sailors loosed reef ties with half-numbed fingers. On the quarterdeck, Eddard Stark braced himself against the rail, salt spitting cold needles into his beard, eyes fixed east where the narrows opened toward the bight. Below him the deck bustled. Harwin barking orders, Palla checking the lashings on kegs of dried lamprey and turnip flour, Maester Luwin fussing with a cedar chest of inks sealed tight against spray. 50 gray-cloaked guards filed toward their billets near the aftercastle. Hand-picked men sworn to silence as much as steel. Without banners flapping, they looked less an embassy than a raiders' company, and that suited Ned fine. He wanted no bright heraldry signaling his passage to Lannister spies roosting on every mast east of here. A runner clattered up the companionway. Lord Stark tides at full slack. Lord Manderley gives leave to sail. Ned nodded, turned. On the main deck Arya stood in oversized wool, wind whipping her chopped hair. She gripped needle tight across her back. Even bundled so, she refused to part with that blade. She caught his eye, lifted her chin. He motioned her aft where the tiller's shadow promised calmer footing. She trotted off, boots thudding planks. Astern, Lord Wyman, enormous in bearskin cloak, leaned on an ivory-capped cane. The sea's a fickle bride, Lord Stark, he called up, voice thick as stew. Treat her gentle and she'll carry you swift. Press her too rough and she'll break your bones. I have courted winter seas before, Ned replied. Yet I thank you for the dowry. He reached a rope ladder, climbed down to the main deck where Wyman waited. They clasped forearms. Ravens whisper that Stannis quit Dragonstone 2 days past, the Manderley Lord rumbled. If the wind holds, you may intercept off Cape Wrath. My second-best galley, the Silver Merman, runs ahead to signal truce. Green lantern by night, white pennon by day. Your generosity will be stamped into song. Ned glanced over the harbor. A dozen cogs, galleys, and fishing crows straining canvas alongside them. Manderley's sudden fleet. Once Stannis proves rightful king, your name shall shine bright. Wyman chuckled. Let's seat him first. Baratheon steel is sharp, but mine's dig deep coin kings fancy taxing. House Manderley prefers rulers who remember old friendships. His eyes gleamed shrewdly. Still, better a stern stag than a golden lion. A bell clanged forward. Lines cast, yards swiveled, and the merman's pride surged, prow carving frothy furrows. Ned looked back one last time. The White Knife Delta, the distant gray towers of White Harbor crowned by green-roofed New Castle, the pale plume of hearth smoke above Donella Hornwood's shipyard forges. Home yet not. He felt Winterfell's stones in his marrow. North of those walls lay half his heart. He prayed Catelyn kept the peace there, yet reports already spoke of Carhold Reavers skirmishing with Bolton outriders near Widow's Watch. The north stirred like a bear woken too soon. He turned into the wind. 3 days they ran before a stiff nor'easter, bowsprit spearing leaden swells glittering under weak sun. Ned passed much of each day with the helmsman, charting bearings, but evenings he drilled with Arya in the waist. Harwin cleared a ring between cargo crates. Sailors paused on rigging to watch the little wolf skip and thrust, parrying Ned's cane with growing grace. Spray sluiced across deck boards, yet she kept footing, laughter bright. Sometimes Ned forgot the looming war, seeing only his daughter dancing in falling light like winter's first snowflake caught on a warm palm. Nightly he closeted with Maester Luwin in the captain's great cabin, hammering letters. One scroll bore terms for alliance with Stannis, the North's support in exchange for immediate royal decree freeing Sansa Stark, legitimizing bastardy of Robert's natural children, and promising justice against Cersei. Another bound House Manderley to supply grain south once hostilities cooled. Coin trading for coin. Ned sealed each with direwolf wax, praying they would open doors quicker than swords broke them. On the 5th morning mist clung thick as wool. Lookouts cried sail ahead. Ned mounted the ladder to the fighting top. Dawn bled weak orange through gauze fog, silhouettes of 3 great war galleys ghosting eastward under shortened sticks. Black-hulled, high-castled, oars sweeping. Between them a 4-masted cog wallowed low, crowned with wooden stag's head, the fury of King Stannis himself if rumor true. Ned's lung filled with sharp hope. Green lanterns already swung from the Silver Merman's foremast, but Stannis' crews beat no answering drum. Instead, a trumpet barked, a single, stern note, oars extended. The nearest galley pivoted hard, prow angling straight toward Manderley's flagship. The helmsman cursed. Ned slid down, barked, "Hold course but ready colors." Manderley's first mate snapped red and green check pennon to the mizzen, signal of peaceful intent. Still the galley closed. At 2 bowshots she turned broadside. Ned glimpsed men in Baratheon colors along outer catwalk, crossbows notched. A booming voice hailed, "Ship hove to. Heave a beam for inspection by order of King Stannis Baratheon." Ned strode to starboard rail. "I am Eddard Stark, Lord of Winterfell, come under banner of truce to treat with his grace. I bear letters and proofs of Joffrey's bastardy." A murmur rippled across the galley's deck. Then a tall knight in gold-rimmed sallet raised visor. Ser Davos Seaworth, if Ned's memory of Robert's companions served. The knight cupped hands. "Remain apace, Lord Stark. His grace will hear you." Ropes flung, yards backed. The 2 ships mated rail to rail with fenders groaning. Ned crossed by gangplank with Harwyn and 2 guards. Fog drank sound. Only slap of waves remained. Davos met him, eyes narrowed but not unkind. He wore plain wool beneath light mail, hands coarse with years at sea. "I recall you from the Trident," Ned greeted. "You smuggled onions enough to feed half Storm's End. And lost 4 finger bones for my trouble," Davos said wry. "Worth the loss, says I." He scanned Ned's escort. "Stannis keeps a sharp court. Speak your case firm." They descended a steep companionway to the cog's stern castle. Inside, a map room cramped with candlelit charts, Stannis Baratheon waited. He wore weather-scarred leather, black beard trimmed to bristle, blue eyes cold as frostbitten steel. He studied Ned as though sizing weak timber. "Lord Stark," he said, voice rasping like stone halves grinding. "You skulked from the capital rather than uphold justice. Explain." "I fled to prevent the Queen using my daughters as hostages," Ned answered, meeting his gaze. "I hold Robert's own decree naming me protector until rightful heir succeeded." He produced the parchment. Stannis snatched it, eyes flicking. When done he grunted. "Renly Bray's claim with 100 Tyrell knights at his arse. Cersei crowns her whelp of sin. The realm cracks. Why now bring this to me?" "Because truth unites," Ned said. "Every great house knows your claim lawful. Yet many still shrink from your temperament." He saw Stannis' mouth tighten. "Ally with the North, and we'll carry your standards south. Our lords quake not at stern faces." Davos cleared throat. "His grace hears your words." Stannis paced 1 turn. "Release of your girl, I'll demand it once throne secure. Bolton Spears? Karstark? Umber? How many ride?" "Robb musters 12,000. With river lords we add near 25 when we march. But not for petty vengeance. To install rightful king and end blood without needless burning." Stannis' brow furrowed. "I like not your talk of restraint. Treason answers by sword's song." "Treason of the guilty," Ned agreed. "But small folk bleed first. Win the realm, not its ashes." Davos stepped forward. "Your grace, you gain stout allies, salt and snow when lions bear claws, and Manderley's fleet strengthens blockade." Stannis halted. "Very well. You sail with my fleet to Storm's End. There we gather host, then strike up the King's Road. Lord Stark commands his northern army as one of my generals." He met Ned's eyes. "Swear fealty here and now." Ned bent knee, unsheathed dagger, pricked thumb blood bright. "I, Eddard of House Stark, Shield of the North, pledge my sword and sons to Stannis Baratheon, first of his name, rightful king of the Undulls, Royner, and First Men." Stannis nodded curt acceptance. Davos exhaled. "Send ravens," Stannis barked. "By mouth of Stark honor they'll heed." The combined fleet buelled south along Cracklaw's shores. Storm clouds towered. Seas heaved, but Stannis' sailors felt at home in wrathful waters. Ned remained aboard Merman's Pride to keep liaison with Wyman's captains. At dusk, Lanterns bobbed like a dragonfly swarm across water. Arya reveled in climbing ratlins, eyes sparkling when dolphins raced under bow. A fortnight later, Storm's End's drum tower loomed, black silhouette against lightning flashes. They anchored beyond catapult range. Quarter galleys rowed Ned, Davos, and a handful of trumpeters to the stone gate. Ser Courtenay Penrose, castellan loyal since Robert's youth, greeted them. News of Robert's death had reached, yet Renly's green banners flew on ramparts. Baratheon's stag quartered with golden rose. Inside, the great hall banners snapped in crossbreeze. Renly's vanity writ in velvet. Penrose led them direct to a solar where Renly feasted. A riot of cheese wheels, figs, roast boar. Lady Marjorie Tyrell poured wine, eyes assessing every new arrival. Renly rose, grin wide. "Brother, and you've brought the North Stray direwolf. Welcome." Stannis' face remained stone. "Yours is no laughing matter. You wear a stolen crown." "It fits my curls better than yours," Renly quipped, though unease flirted in eyes. "Besides, the realm deserves a smiling king." "The realm deserves a lawful one," Ned interjected. He laid parchment down. "Joffrey is no son of Robert. You know law must seat Stannis." Around the table, Lords Tyrell, Tarly, Rowan shifted. Marjorie's fan tapped thigh. Renly fluttered hand. "Legalities bore small folk. They crave plenty and peace." "Plenty born on lies rots," Ned replied. He saw swords loosen in scabbards. "Will you fight your brother for a crown forged of rumor?" Renly's smile thinned. He turned to Stannis. "What do you offer, stern one? Same levies? Double taxes? Dour sermons?" He surveyed gathering gloom outside windows. "Your fleet small, your banners frostbitten. My fleet strong enough to choke Blackwater Bay," Stannis said. "With Stark and Aaron swords we crush lions. Then open choice. Yield fealty or face siege without end." Renly poured wine, sipped, feigning nonchalance. Yet Ned sensed calculus behind bright eyes. Tyrell harvests could feed a siege. Their knights, though, yearned for glory, not entanglement between Baratheon brothers when real war beckoned against Lannisters. Divide here, Tywin wins.
Ned stepped closer.
"Join us. The North will swear peace with Highgarden, merry lines. My son Rickon perhaps betroths a Tyrell daughter in time. Bread grows in sunshine of unity." Marjorie's eyebrows arched. Randall Tarly whispered in Lord Rowan's ear. Renly drummed fingers. "Brother, let me be your hand. Faces love me. Rule flows easier." Stannis' jaw worked. "Serve as hand beneath me? Accept my crown, then speak of roles." Renly's gaze hardened. No, one word, cold. Silence thickened. Lightning cracked. Thunder booming. Davos shifted.
Ned sighed.
"Then fate chooses swords." Renly bowed mockingly. "Tomorrow at dawn, outside the pines, we shall settle whose claim God's favor." That night Storm's End trembled in tempest fury. Ned quartered with Davos in a lean garrison cell, quill scratching urgent notes. Messages to Robb, to Catelyn, to Riverlords. He wished to avoid Dawn's duel. He feared Stannis' inflexible will might shatter realm further. Yet choice no longer his. Outside lightning flared. Through lattice Ned glimpsed King Stannis pacing battlements alone, cloak whipping like dark banner. He admired such resolve, yet dreaded cost. He dozed fitful. Sometime before cockcrow a scream split the gale. Trumpets blared. Ned sprang, sword in hand, dashed into corridor thronged with guards dragging torches. "Assassin!" someone shouted. "King Renly slain." They crashed into Renly's pavilion. Canvas shredded from within, green carpets spattered black. Renly lay across bed, eyes wide, throat gaping in jagged wound. No sign of assailant. Only swirling cold mist hanging palpable as breath. Ser Loras Tyrell knelt, face a mask of grief and horror. He turned on Stannis' approaching guards, blade drawn, sobbing rage. Men restrained him, but Tyrell knights roared vengeance. The castle erupted. Half the host clamoring for Stannis' head, half in panic, seeing omen in sudden death.
Ned stooped over corpse.
wound too ragged for steel, edges blackened like frostburn. He touched them, they steamed cold. Maester Luwin murmured, "Sorcery." Ned's skin crawled. Shadow whispers of Lawler and Red Priests following Stannis rumored about. Could ambition breed such foul means? He peered at Stannis, arrived breathless, eyes smoldering confusion or guilt. "Did you summon this?" Ned asked low. Stannis's jaw clenched. "I called no shadow. The Lord of Light wages war unseen. I but serve justice." A chill heavier than sleet settled. Yet politics spun quick. Renly dead, his banner host leaderless. Many lords now wavered. Marjorie rallied Tyrell commanders. Within hours, half withdrew toward Bitterbridge, whispers of Southern alliance with lions rather than shadows. Stannis convened council at midday. "We sail at once for Blackwater. Tyrells peel away. Lannisters fear two flanks. Lord Stark, dispatch Ravens west citing Renly's deathbed plea to support rightful heir." He said it as fact, truth bent to need. Ned's stomach writhed. Yet time's river raced. Sansa's life still hung in balance. Tywin marched. The realm bled. He forced nod. "We sail." Back in Storm's End yard, Arya trained with castle squires. Footwork crisp. Ned pulled her aside, heart heavy. "We leave before dusk. War quickens." He knelt. "I may ride into battle's dark. If word reaches Winterfell that I fall, you guard your brothers. Protect mother." Arya scowled. "You won't fall. Wolves fight in packs. And some stand sentinel." He brushed stray hair from her brow. "Stay by Maester Luwin. Follow Harwin's orders." She bit lip, then flung arms round him. He held her tight, inhaled smoke and salt mingled in her hair. "I'll come back," he promised, though winter sky loomed foreboding. Within 2 days fleet rounded Duskendale. Scouts sped ahead with letters. At Sow's Horn they learned Tywin Lannister had split forces. Ser Jaime west pressing Riverlands, Lord Tywin himself east along Mander's Ford to meet Edmure Tully. But new tidings chilled Ned. A host of 5,000 under Ser Stafford Lannister marched for Moat Cailin via the causeway, hoping to block Robb in the neck.
Hva Webstanget?
"Robb must smash that thrust," Ned said to Davos as they poured map. "But he marches south, his rear naked." "Warn him," Davos urged. "Ravens may not outfly swords."
Ned clenched fist.
"I ride for the neck once Blackwater lies secured." Davos raised brow. "King needs his northern hammer at the walls. He needs the north safe behind him, or his rump bleeds from wolf wounds." Ned's eyes burned. Their debate cut short by horn blasts. Fleet-sighted shoals of Blackwater Bay. King's Landing's walls shimmered ahead, banners gold and crimson flapping above Red Keep. Baratheon ships under Stannis fanned out. Manderley cogs formed supply wing. Fire ships, hand-built at Dragonstone, floated like innocuous hulks among them. Stannis' secret mace.
Ned prayed wildfire rumors exaggeration.
Defenders readied. Chain boom half-raised across river mouth. Scorpions manned on mud gate bastions. Ned scanned parapets with spyglass. There, tiny but distinct, stood a girl in sky-blue gown, hair copper gold under sun. Sansa. She clutched balustrade, shoulders bowed. Beside her, white-cloaked Ser Boros Blunt mocked with gesture outward. The sight lanced Ned's heart. Harwin, noting his blanch, offered spyglass. "We get her back or die." "We do neither," Ned muttered. "We win whole, with as little death as the gods allow." Black sails unfurled. Drums pounded. The war for the dawn of truth, as some bard one day might name it, began with the thunder of oars and the hiss of winter wind down sailcloth. While siege engines rolled ashore below the city's eastern bluffs, hundreds of miles north Bran Stark wheeled through Winterfell's Godswood, watching prayers flutter like scarlet leaves around the heart tree. Arya sparred in clearing, her needle whistle cutting crisp arcs. Catelyn knelt by the pool, tears merging with snowmelt, prayers of mothers in every age. And somewhere beyond, Robb Stark's columns pushed through the teeth of Frey, banners snapping, gray wind loping ahead, war horns echoing across moor. a wolf song answering lion roar. Ravens flecked sky between armies like black ashes swirling from a fire yet unquenched. They bore words of truth and lies both. Some sealed with dire wolves, some with flaming hearts, some with gold lions rampant. And beneath their beating wings the 7 kingdoms quivered, a tapestry pulled taut to ripping. Eddard Stark stood upon the prow of Merman's Pride as she ran upriver on flood tide, towers of kings landing looming like jagged teeth. Thunder rolled from north, yet no storm clouds showed. He guessed cannonade of siege scorpions slinging iron quarrels at Dragonstone's vanguards. He raised sword, Long Sister's northern steel glinting pale, and spoke to the wind. Winter remembers, justice rides. And in the city above, a girl with hair of auburn fire closed her eyes, whispering a single name into the chill. Father, the word carried on the breeze, lost amid the clangor of preparing war. Yet perhaps the old gods caught it and held it close, waiting for the hour they might answer. The first sortie of lions burst from Mud Gate. Northern horns answered from river. Steel rang, men shouted, sea wind howled. And somewhere deep in shadowed crypts of fate, the board reset once more, pieces sliding under unseen hands. Honor, ambition, love, vengeance, all vying. Rolling breakers slapped the Merman's Pride as she nosed against the Blackwater's broad current, her hull shuddering under the pulse of tide and the violent thrum of distant catapults. Salt spray misted the war galley's upperworks and beaded on the fur of Ned Stark's collar while he stood at the cutwater, gaze fixed on the snarling red clay bluffs that guarded King's Landing. Siege towers already sprouted there, tall wooden beasts bristling with ramp ladders, and from each the stag banner of Stannis Baratheon cracked and snapped like a whip. Below the bluffs on the riverfront, the first lines of Baratheon infantry swarmed the Mud Gate's earthen ramp. Cloaked in storm-black tabards, pikes lowered, they moved with grim purpose, their iron-shod boots churning the slope into bloody slurry. Lannister archers answered from crenellations in smoking volleys, arrows hissing past Ned's masthead like angry wasps. He could taste pitch and soot on every breath. The city's defenders had set half the wharf district alight, hoping smoke and flame would blind the fleet. But Baratheon ships rode straight into the murk, prows spitting fire of their own. Stannis' main strength, 30 great war galleys, oar lines red with fresh paint, advanced in staggered echelons, flanked by Manderly cogs laden with supply and Northmen. In their midst, tethered like docile oxen among wolves, drifted 3 rotten traitors stuffed with pitch pots and wildfire casks. The king's secret fire ships. Davos said one spark in their holds would turn night to day and water to boiling death. Ned prayed they would never burn. Harwin joined him at the rail. Ser Imry's galleys press the chain, he reported. If the boom lifts, we row upriver under the city walls. Ned's jaw tightened. He had studied Joffrey's chain, forged links thick as a man's waist, wound on drums within twin towers near the mouth. If Stannis forced those drums before the Lannisters thought to raise the chain, the river would belong to the fleet. If not, ships would die trapped beneath boiling pitch. Thunder shook sky, no storm, but the twin scorpion towers releasing their monstrous Dornish scorpions. Huge iron bolts screamed overhead, one pinwheeling through cloud of gulls, showering white feathers. It struck Stag's Grace 2 ships ahead. The bolt punched through starboard rail, impaled 4 oarmen, and out the far side in spray of crimson. On deck, men howled but closed ranks. Discipline of Dragonstone. Ned breathed coldly, seized griffin-headed speaking trumpet. Steady oars. His voice rang strong despite gale. Hold your intervals. Let the Fury's prow cover our gap. Drum beats answered. Merman's Pride slid left, avoiding drifting wreckage. Sailors shouted down banks of oars, rhythm booming like monstrous heartbeat. By mid-morning, the assault line neared the old boom towers. Catapults on city walls launched great goblets of green fire, wildfire pots, arching sickly emerald through haze. Where they landed, water combusted, painting shock-bright blossoms of jade flame that crawled across surface, clinging to hulls. One Baratheon galley, faithful, caught a full cask. Her deck erupted in shrieks as men dissolved into living torches. Ned forced himself not to look away but to memorize every horror, so he would never choose such weapons for his own. "Gods pity them," Harwin muttered. "Old gods judge us all," Ned answered. Trumpets blared from the Fury's quarterdeck. Davos's signal. The chain was still down. Stannis' flagship shot ahead, 30 yards to Ned's starboard beam.
Ned climbed rettleins for vanntaket.
He could see the wharf beyond the gate. Chaos, wagons aflame, small folk scurrying, gold cloaks corralling civilians. Above tower roofs fluttered protean shapes of red and gold. And there, on the King's Gate parapet, 2 figures. A boy king in gilded breastplate and a tall woman in forest green gown, argued while armored guards milled. Joffrey Baratheon, petulant even from afar, brandished crossbow toward walls. Beside him, Sansa Stark's copper hair shimmered. Each time the boy shrieked, she flinched but held shoulders rigid. Ned promised himself, before night's frost dew formed on these rails, she would be free, or he would not breathe. The chain towers lurched closer. Stannis' flame ships drifted outward, sails slack to seem harmless merchantmen swept by current. At predetermined moment, war galleys broke or scale and separated, revealing the 3 hulks. City watch on towers recognized too late. Horns brayed frantic warnings. Above the gate, Lannister scorpions swung to aim, but wind, smoke, and narrow arc hampered. The hulks passed chain channels. Torchbearers aboard touched brands to fuse. Ned glimpsed ghost pale faces sprinting for rowboats already lowered. Then brilliance roared. A flash like noon sun, green to madness, blooming across water. Heat slapped Ned's face though half a furlong abaft. Flames hammered chain towers, engulfed drum cogs. Bronze fittings shrieked as they melted. Iron links snapped one upon the next. When smoke tore clear, chain lay slack on riverbed, barrier broken. But wildfire also spilled uncontrolled. Threads of living flame raced across waves toward Merman's Pride. Ned barked orders. Helmsman swung hard port. Oars on larboard bit deep, thrashing to pivot. A tendril of emerald brushed stern quarter. Pitch hissed, planks blistered, but crewmen sloshed sand barrels, smothering. Steam scalded throat, but ship survived. By noon, the fleet surged unimpeded beneath the city's eastern wall. Siege ladders scraped stone. Grapnels bit. Ned felt deck jar as Pride kissed quay. Her soldiers hurled boarding hooks, swarmed ashore under shield arcs. He followed, boots finding slimy riverstone. Splashing up low steps, he drew Long Sister, northern steel glittering steel cold. Harwin and Palace sealed arc around him. They advanced through smoke fog alleys. Gold cloaks resisted but broke before disciplined spear hammers. Ned's company pressed toward the stair spiraling into King's Landing proper. Above, bells clanged false hope. Small folk screamed like gulls. Atop the mermaid stairs, they met red-cloaked guards of the Lannister house. Ned parleyed once.
Stand Aside.
King's justice approaches. Their captain sneered, loosed crossbow. Arrow glanced off Ned's pauldron. He charged. Harwin's axe slit the man groin to gullet. Pala's spear pinned another's knee. In minutes, blood stained steps black. Survivors fled. Through Flea Bottom's warren they fought. Past shuttered hovel doors, past plague pits where bodies already twitched with flies though battle only begun. A child's wailing echoed from cellar grate. Ned forced himself forward. First rescue Sansa, then restore order. Every heartbeat risked her life. Near Baelor's September, horns sounded new cadence. Tywin's arrival. Ned halted under a leaning balcony. Scouts relayed. A dust cloud to the west. Lannister relief host pouring across Red Fork in forced march, earlier than spies predicted. If Tywin smashed Stannis' flank before gate fell, siege might fail. Ned weighed. Harder he pressed inside. Faster Truth Banner might drop walls and open gate to rearguard. He chose speed. They skirted September, cut through cobbler lanes, angled toward Inner Keep. 5 blocks from King's Gate, an alley opened into courtyard below Trader's parade ground. There, gold cloaks formed shield wall. At their center, Janos Slint barked orders. Behind him, chained between two red cloaks, stumbled Sansa Stark. Gown torn, cheeks streaked with soot but alive. Ned's pulse hammered. He raised sword high. "Stark!" His voice boomed like Winterfell's horn. Sansa's head snapped up. Hope flared.
Janos spun, face coloring.
"Kill the traitor." Bolts flew. Ned's shield blocked one. Another ripped open Harwin's bicep, but he fought on. Northmen crashed shield wall. With splintered, men screamed. Ned carved path. Long sister a silver arc. Parried a mace, thrust through mail at a gap. Blood sprayed hot on his brow. Sansa reached for him, but guards jerked her back. Then chaos split fresh. A second column entered courtyard. Knights in crimson cloaks and lion helms. At head rode Ser Jaime Lannister, sword bare, eyes alight with battle glee. He reined to view the melee, blonde hair plastered by sweat. "So the wolf crawls from its hole," he called. "I owe you a whisper from Riverrun." Ned faced him, blade drip scarlet. "Your quarrel is with me. Release my daughter." Jaime laughed. "She is leverage, old wolf. Drop your steel, we talk." Crossbowmen ringed parapets. Odds shifted. Yet Janos Slint, greedy, dragged Sansa toward inner gate while Jaime challenged. Ned studied his foe, Kingslayer still cocksure, but some flicker of doubt. Wildfire smoke, Tywin far, battle uncertain. If Ned fell, Stannis still pressed walls. Hostage value waned. He must tilt scales. He signaled Palla. The spearman nodded, slipped behind Barrel's flanking courtyard, leading pair of men. Meanwhile, Ned advanced into open square, sword lowered yet ready. Jaime dismounted, removed cloak, flexed wrists. "Let's make this quick. I promise Cersei your head on spike." Ned circled, boots crunching gravel, memory tick of every tourney. They exchanged first blows. Steel rang SP. Arcs showered. Ned's shoulder jarred from Jaime's youth strength, but he deflected, counterslashed. Dance repeated. Jaime's speed versus Ned's ice patience. Meanwhile, Palla's trio crept opposite flank. Arrows knocked at Slint's guards. Ned saw movement in peripheral they would loose on signal. Jaime feinted high, spun low. Ned parried downward, twisting weight. Riposte nicked Jaime's thigh, bright blood. Kingslayer grinned, exhilaration surging. Bolts whistled. Palla's volley felled one guard, second staggered. Slint shrieked, releasing Sansa's arm. She bolted, barefoot across courtyard. Arrows followed. Ned disengaged, sprinted half-circle, sliced down a gold cloak who lunged. Jaime cursed, pursued. Sansa reached Ned's perimeter. Harwin grabbed her, shielded. Ned turned to face Jaime again. But horns rang anew. Baratheon soldiers flooded courtyard from rear passage. Davos's men with Stannis himself astride. Stag banner plunged into square. Lannister crossbows wavered. Jaime saw tide shift, signaled retreat. He slashed at Ned in passing. Ned blocked knuckle-numbing blow. Kingslayer vaulted onto fresh mount brought by Squire, rallied men outside gate before Baratheon onslaught closed. Slint vanished under crush. Stannis strode through smoke, expression carved in wrath. The false-born scuttles, yet victory sprouts. He glanced at Sansa, filthy but alive. "Your daughter." Ned embraced Sansa. Tears gleamed down her cheeks. "My lady, so brave." Stannis cleared throat. "Regroup. Hold this ward. Tywin roars westward. We must open gate and meet him on chosen ground." He turned to Davos. "Signal fleet to land reserve knights." Ned guided Sansa behind shield wall, where Maester Luwin waiting with bandages. She clung, sobbing but relieved. "I thought I'd never see the North again," she whispered. "You will," Ned vowed. "The North stands." Yet his gaze drifted to smoky parapets where Lannister lions still snapped. Soon real test began. Tywin versus Stannis, father versus father. Realm's fate balanced on Bloodslick Street. That evening sky blazed red, sunset or battle, none could tell. Tywin's vanguard hammered Stannis' outer flank along the Gold Road, cavalry colliding with newly raised Riverland foot.
Varshut draunt gul Kris.
From King's Landing walls, wildfire still flickered on water, emerald ghosts dancing through dark. Inside captured district, Stannis and Ned convened war council in sacked Silk Merchant Hall. Candles tremored in sticky heat. Davos unrolled fresh reports. Kingslayer holes inside Maegor's holdfast with 500 heavy knights. Cersei and the Boy King barricade Red Keep. City gates under our control save Lion Gate, but Tywin approaches that side. Stannis jabbed map. We hold 3/4 of city, yet Red Keep is heart. We break it before Tywin arrives else pincer. Ned shook head. Better to fortify our quarter and draw Tywin into street fights. His cavalry worthless in alleys. Meanwhile send envoys to small folk. Lion claws burned their homes. Promise food, order. They'll bar Tywin entry.
Davos backed Ned.
Goldcloak morale shook. They might switch if paid and pardoned. Stannis' jaw flinched. I do not buy loyalty. Sometimes feeding starving children buys peace, Ned murmured. The king considered, eyes like flint. Very well. Issue grain from storehouses we seized. Post proclamations. Any man raising lion banner judged traitor to realm. Maester Luwin scribbled. Later, Ned slipped through curtained alcove to where Sansa rested on makeshift cot. Arya knelt beside her, silent tears channeling grime. Sisters embraced fiercely. Ned sat, took their hands. Daughters both safe at last. Sansa trembled. Arya squeezed. He gazed at them, heart aching. War's toll measured not only in corpses but in innocence frayed. Yet hope flickered. If city turned against Lannisters, war might close without butchery. He kissed each brow. Sleep now. Tomorrow we shepherd a realm. But night gave no rest. On third hour past moonrise, Ned jolted awake to roar like thunder. He rushed onto balcony. Maegor's holdfast bathed in ruddy glare, firestorm within walls. A moment later, messenger breathless. Explosion under castle. Wildfire vault ignited. Keep walls cracked. Fear surged. Cersei's stores lit accidentally or sabotage. If keep fell, city might ignite route to crown. Ned donned cloak, hurried to council chamber where Stannis already ordered bucket brigades. Davos organized fire lines, Northmen hauled wells. Even as they fought flames, new terror pounced. By torch glow across Market Square stormed legions in lion pelts. Tywin's foremost. Somehow they breasted gate early, using sewers, and now sought to link with Jaime's contingent in collapsing castle.
Ned rallied Northmen.
Harwin planted Direwolf banner. Horns blew. Battle crashed through Loom District. Clatter of steel, horses' panic squeals as they slipped on cobblestones slick with tallow. Ned hewed through a Westerman wearing brindled cloak. Blade caught bone. He yanked free, sidestepped spear thrust, counterstabbed. All smells blurred, blood, smoke, burned silk. Above din, bell of Baelor's September tolled. One deep mournful peal repeated. Sanctuary call or alarm? Hard to know. Yet each toll seemed to slow hearts, drag spirits into gloom. Around corner Ned spotted Kingslayer again rallying retinue, maneuvering to rejoin father. If those spear points merged, their momentum could shatter Stannis' line. Ned spurred forward, but halfway, street collapsed. Wildfire tunnels undermined substructure. Ground caved into cavern of green hell. Jaime's horse reared, pitched into chasm. Kingslayer vaulted free onto rubble, stunned. Opportunity struck. Ned charged, Harwin at flank, Palla behind. They closed while Jaime still regained stance. He saw them, grinned blood-slick. Round 2 Wolf. They traded lightning steel. Jaime's wrist quick. Ned parried high slash, riposte low. Jaime leapt back, landed precariously near pit. Rocks crumbled. He steadied, lunged forward. Clash after clash, they circled like twin hawks. Harwin warded stray blows from Lannister foot. Then distant trumpet. Tywin signaling fallback. Row of Westermen disengaged. Jaime cursed. Another fiery rumble shook ground. Masonry reigned. Kingslayer glanced at Keep, saw a plume of green-black smoke rising. A flicker of fear, maybe for sister within, crossed his eyes. He slashed furious arc, forcing Ned to guard, then darted sideways, kicking rubble into Wolf's path. Ned stumbled, regained, but Jaime vanished down alley amid retreating men. Harwin puffed. "Coward. Father's summons," Ned corrected. "Our stand holds." At dawn, horns from Lion Gate faltered. Tywin's wave failing to break through second barrier of overturned wagons and flaming pitch trenches Stannis' engineers erected overnight. With Keep wounded and Lannisters denied junction, their assault ebbed. Stannis convened meeting at sunrise on balcony of shattered counting house. Tywin's forces withdrawn to outer curtain of city. Red Keep half ruined, but still Lannister banners flew. "One more push," King growled. Ned counseled caution. Walls likely riddled with wildfire caches. Charging interior courtyard risked chain explosion. Instead, he proposed siege of Keep itself while small folk looted lion grain, sapping morale. Stannis grudging. Day to clear hazards, then assault. Evening message arrived, white flag from Maegor's Holdfast. Jaime sought parley. Safe passage for wounded children of city. Surrender of Keep in exchange for guarantee of Cersei and young Tommen's lives. Joffrey missing since Blaze. Rumor he fled sewers with Kettle Black Guard. Stannis eyed Ned. Opinion. Accept. Protect innocence, claim moral victory. Jaime stands hostage for Tywin's retreat. Stannis nodded slowly. Next dawn, gates opened. Jaime emerged on foot, sword belted but sheathed, escort of 50. His golden hair singed, eyes hollow from sleepless fire watch. He knelt before Stannis, first kneel of prideful lion. "My men stand down," Kingslayer said. "I yield Keep and city in their name. Cersei and Prince Tommen will depart under guard to Casterly Rock." Stannis. "They remain under guard in Dragonstone until trial." Surprised flicker crossed Jaime's face, but he bowed. Terms sealed. Tywin in outer camp fumed but could not breach without sun. After day of tense standoff, Lannister host withdrew across Blackwater, setting fires to cover retreat. Bells rang again, this time bright. Small folk cheered. Sacks of flour and onions distributed. Stannis walked streets flanked by Ned, showing King's face to realm. Many knelt. Many simply stared, yet no stones thrown. Dire Wolf and Stag banners hung side by side above Mudgate. While fires still smoldered, parchment scribes everywhere inked proclamations. Joffrey Baratheon dead during Keep firestorm. Some said accident, others whispered suicide. Cersei indicted for treason, to face court of King Stannis. Trial set after winter. Jaime held but allowed parole inside Red Keep to ensure Tywin's compliance with peace summons. Ned oversaw posting of Robert's decree across Crownlands. Lords trickled to kneel, House Hayford, House Massey, even Lord Rosby eventually bent knee. Only Tyrells remained uncertain, weighing risk of aligning with dethroned lions or strict stag. Ned used breathing week to send ravens north. Sansa safe, Arya too, father alive. Host outside Riverrun to pause pursuit of Stafford's flank until new orders. He urged Catelyn to prepare hearths for influx of war orphans. Famine shadowing south. Amid this bustle, Littlefinger emerged from shadows of banking cellars, as silver-tongued as ever, offering to stabilize city coin flow. Stannis almost hanged him, but Ned argued, "Know thy enemy. Leash can bite but also pull cart." Baelish granted probation under Davos's supervision. Gradually city calmed. Stannis appointed Davos as hand, lowborn smuggler now steward of realm. Ned accepted role of Lord Protector north and east, charged to pacify Riverlands. Sansa and Arya quartered in Tower of Hand for safety. They spent afternoons together, mending bond lost to courts. Arya told Sansa of Water Dance. Sansa taught Arya new embroidery pattern of direwolf swirling around stag. One starlit night on terrace, Ned and Davos gazed at torches lining now quiet docks. Davos broke silence. "We won city, yet war not over. Tywin sits in field licking wounds, but lion still hunts. North remembers, Ned said softly. With truth as shield and winter as sword, we end this war before snow's berry harvests. He looked toward Red Keep's patched walls. Somewhere inside, Cersei Lannister lay in modest chamber, stripped of queen's jewels, plotting still. Jaime paced under guard, gold hair dulled. Tywin's ravens flew. But Ned felt winds shift. Once banners of honor flew above blackened towers, small folk whispered new songs. Not of treachery, but of a king who seized throne through lawful right, guided by a northern wolf who kept promise to daughters and realm. A fragile peace, but peace nonetheless. Yet the game board seldom slept. In dim cells below Dragon Pit, shadows stirred, agents of faceless gods seeking coin from many-tongued whisperer. Red Priestess from Ashai arriving to claim credit for wildfire omen. Iron Isles reaving west coast while realm fixated on capital. Ned foresaw those storms but allowed himself single moment of stillness. On walkway of battlements where cold breeze carried faint scent of pine from hinterland, he closed eyes. Winter still coming, but so was dawn. Behind him, bootfalls soft. Sansa. She leaned on parapet, gazed distant. Father, is it truly over? Battles end, he answered. But life marches. We rebuild. Her hand found his. He felt tremor, but also quiet strength. She had endured fear, humiliation, loss, and matured iron beneath velvet. Arya soon joined, pointing at stars, naming constellations Sirio taught by water dancer songs. Ned listened, heart full. Down in torchlit courtyard, Harwin trained new recruits of City Watch wearing fresh sigils. Crowned stag and direwolf entwined. For first time in moons, laughter mingled with clash of practiced steel. Ned turned northward, toward home beyond pale horizon. He envisioned snow dusting towers of Winterfell, hot bread sent drifting from kitchens, Weirwood's red leaves rustling secrets. Someday, when realm reclaimed peace enough, he would ride there with daughters, sons. Let Huthfire thaw battle frost. But not yet. He straightened. Next morn he would depart with 1,000 riders to Riverlands, to break sieges, escort Edmure Tully to council at Harrenhal ruins, extend royal pardon to those who bent knee. Work of justice never sleeps. He spoke softly to the wind. Lyanna, sister, promise kept. Somewhere leaves answered, and so the wolf who chose escape over slaughter, who bore truth like sword, stood ready for long march ahead, guiding realm from blood and lies into chill, clear light of winter morning. The first kiss of winter came early to the Riverlands that year, creeping in on a blue-gray dawn that turned frost to powdered glass over the rolling flats between the Tumblestone's upper forks. Eddard Stark felt the fragile crystals break beneath his stallion's hooves as his column advanced through a low-ground fog thick enough to mute the clash and clatter of a marching host. Spearmen trudged in disciplined files, the direwolf and crowned stag sewn together upon their guidons, flapping against a needling wind. Behind them lumbered oxcarts stacked with barrels of salt beef, iron-shod chests of coin, and kegs of pitch. Ahead rode the outriders who had guided him this far south from King's Landing. They were Manderly scouts, fishermen's grandsons now salted by battle, who claimed to know every crook of the Green Fork like scars on their knuckles. Ned lifted the visor of his dark helm to breathe the cold air without the stink of wool. A fortnight had passed since Stannis' banners replaced the lion on King's Landing's gates. 2 weeks in which the old order quaked but did not quite fall. Lord Tywin Lannister had executed a furious fighting withdrawal east of the Trident, burning storehouses, scorching orchards, fouling wells. Stannis placed Ned over the army of justice, 10,000 Northerners and 7,000 Stormlanders tasked with chasing Tywin, freeing Riverrun, and preventing a junction of Lion and Kraken both. The weight of that command pressed heavier than the mail on his shoulders, for in its success lay the fragile hope of a realm too near the brink. Robb marched in tandem from the Neck with his own contingents, Great John Umber's berserkers, Galbart Glover's archers, Karstark cavalry eager to repay sons lost to Lannister blades. Robb's orders were to cut west across the Blue Fork to intercept Ser Stafford's thrust toward Moat Cailin, but a mailed raven 3 nights past claimed Ser Stafford had already died, slew by a ghost in green cloak wielding a crossbow at Oxcross. Some named that ghost Stark's bannermen, others swore to Blackwoods. Either way, the news freed Robb to will south and reinforce Father, but it also spurred Tywin to move faster. A cornered lion, Ned thought, would sooner rend flesh than sleep. Ahead, the Manderley outriders returned at a gallop. Snow-flecked mud spattered their cloaks. The leader, a lank youth named Doran, dismounted before Ned. "My lord, the Red Fork ford's clear. Our scouts glimpsed Lannister outriders 4 leagues west, marching hard. Columns stretched thin. Looks like they push for Harrenhal's ruins by nightfall." Ned considered. Harrenhal offered Tywin strong walls, if you trusted cursed stone, and a base to gather stragglers from the Westerlands while his foragers pillaged the fat fields beyond the God's Eye. Letting the lion into Harrenhal meant months of siege. Could not stand. But if Ned struck too soon, his army risked fighting across the river's muddy flats with water at their back. A classic Tywin trap. The other option: outrun the lion, secure Riverrun first, link with Tully banners, and force Tywin east where Crownland's harvests failed, drawing him toward Blackwater again. Harwin rode up, bandaged bicep healed but stiff. "I say we bleed them now while their tails hang out. Strike the rear, break the columns, so panic." "Tywin feigns weakness," Ned warned. "He wants us to bite." He scanned the horizon beyond the mist. Crows spiraled in lazy gyres, silhouettes against a watery sun. Too many birds for simple death. Battlefields ahead. Another horse came pounding down the line, lathered. From its saddle tumbled Malwyn Fry, one of Robb's swiftest couriers. He bowed. "Lord Stark tidings. Robb's outriders captured 2 lion scouts near Oldstones. Under interrogation, they confessed Tywin rides not for Harrenhal only. Ironborn longships sighted near Fairmarket. Tywin hopes to meet Euron Greyjoy's reavers and trade coin for chaos along the northern coast."
Ned svor under brett.
"Ironborn so soon. The Greyjoys smelt war like sharks to blood." "Did we sight krakens?" he asked. "Just rumors," Malwyn said. "But riverfolk flee, claim Red Sail raiders torch granaries." "Which feeds Riverrun," Harwin added. "Edmure cannot hold siege with empty bellies." He said it softly, mindful that one of Edmure's sisters had become Ned's wife. Ned reached decision. "We quick march to Riverrun, secure the Tully grain, fortify crossings. Then we will west and deny Lion and Kraken meeting ground." He turned to his bannermen. Ser Brynden Tully, who had joined them near Maidenpool with 200 outriders. Ser Ronnet Connington representing Stormland levies. Lord Jason Mal Lister commanding Riverbowmen. "Sound the march. 10 leagues before sundown. We ford at Lord Harroway's town and break for Vanguard Camp 2 leagues east of Pinkmaiden." Orders flew like whipped banners. Drums thudded, horns brayed. The host lengthened its stride. Ned set his stallion to a canter. Footmen cursed soft but shuffled faster. Above them the sky thickened, promising more sleet. By dusk they reached Lord Harroway's crossing and found it guarded by nothing more than wind and the faint echo of last spring's laughter. Tywin had not fortified the ford, too intent on Harrenhal perhaps. Ned's engineers, led by one-armed Wex Steelshanks, laid planks to widen the shallows. Infantry splashed across first, shields linked, then wagons. Last of all the northern knights, cloaks sodden. Fires sprouted on the far bank, orange halos in the gloom. Ned walked the lines long after others huddled in bedrolls. He exchanged quiet words with pickets, adjusted a loose girth, poured steaming oat stew for a greenbowie trembling under his helm. Each act reminded him what war truly cost: innocence and time. Returning to his command tent, he found Maester Luwin copying another bundle of letters for Ravens, one to Stannis reporting progress, one to Queen's Landing, as the capital folk now named it, and one to Caitlin. Luwin's quill scratched like winter branches on glass. "How far behind us rides Tywin?" Ned asked. "Scouts estimate half a day on main column," Luwin said. "But Ser Kevin leads a second column hugging Blue Fork, slower under wagons. They may act as hammer if Tywin becomes Enville." Ned studied the map pinned with river stones. Pinkmaiden lay ahead, Riverrun beyond. the tumblestone bending like an old man's elbow. At Fairmarket, a small icon shaped like Kraken denoted raider sightings. He touched it.
Iromborn trahivent en surprise.
If they strike Fairmarket tomorrow, they strike Seagard next. Lord Jason's seat, Lewin agreed. He hides worry, but Mallister archers are thin upon this field.
Ned Uaid possibilities.
He could detach Mallister now, but then siege of Riverrun might stumble. He sighed. D. Send Raven to Seagard, close portcullis, man ballisti, and to my son, inform him Ironborn may threaten the neck, but our course holds. We will not be diverted by every shadow. Lewin sealed scrolls, wax pooled red. Outside, flakes drifted slow. Ned inhaled their chill and remembered Winterfell's quiet nights. The distant rumble of hot springs, soft laughter of children in hall. He banished longing, war first. At dawn, Pink Maiden's gates yawned open before them, Lord Piper riding out to greet Ned with flowing red cloak and bright grin. My Lord Stark, you bring north wind, our wells freeze, but gratitude shone. Piper's men had skirmished lions daily for weeks, nearly spent. They poured out to join ranks while peasants cheered, waving half-loaves of bread. Ned left a third of his wagons as relief, then drove onward. 2 days more of forced march found outriders smelling smoke on western horizon. Riverrun's banners topped towers still, but siege lines ringed its walls, battering rams, mangonels, and thousands of lion tents like a field of blood-red poppies. Ser Edmure held yet, but stocks dwindled. Tywin's tokens burned grain north of Red Fork to starve fish out of water. Ned's host halted on ridge east of the city. Below, the tumblestone glittered under midday sun, half frozen at edges. Across it stretched a temporary trestle bridge of charred planks, Lannister engineer work. On far bank, a screen of pikemen in crimson kept watch. Brynden Tully spurred up, gray hair whipping. My nephew holds but looks to sky for ravens that never come. Take that bridge intact, we cut lion throat. Harwin studied layout. They'll burn it before surrender. Then we take it quick. Ned summoned Jason Mallister. Your archers take east bank, cover assault. I lead vanguard across within first volley. Brynden and Ronnet follow with main. Mallister's steel eyes lit. My bows thirst. Orders flew. At dusk, wind died, the hush before drum. Ned led 600 hand-picked in column, shields rimmed with white chalk wolf heads. Mallister's longbows crouched in reeds. They fitted arrows of ash, goose-fletched. When sky flushed purple, Ned raised sword. 3 quick sparks from flint, the signal.
Bowstring sang.
A storm of steel glinted, arcing over river to pike screen beyond. 3 volleys in as many heartbeats. Armor rattled. Screams. Ned's column charged. They hit trestle while some lions yet staggered. Planks shook under hammer of boots. Ned's banner surged. First across, he met a captain swinging morning star. Long sister caught chain, riposte skewered jugular. Ice wind blew in Ned's ears as training took hold. Cut, pivot, shield, thrust. Harwin at his side roared, splitting helm like overripe gourd. Pikemen tried to rally, but Mallister's 4th volley ripped gaps. Stormlander swords crashed gaps wider. Soon red cloaks broke, fleeing toward siege lines still raising alarms. Brynden cantered across with second wave. Horns boomed. Trumpets brayed Riverlander tune. Ned regrouped on far bank. Push direct to south camp. Burn catapults. Signal Riverrun to sortie. As torches lit, castle horns joined. Edmure's salmon banners unfurling atop gatehouse. Portcullis lifted. A sally of armored Tully knights burst, crashing into Lion's eastern flank. The night became cacophony. Steel ring, horses scream, fire roar as pitch cauldrons overturned onto siege towers. Tywin himself commanded central camp, his war chair perched near sepulchre oaks. When Ned's standards breached inner pickets, the old lion rose, gold armor reflecting wildfire distant in his eyes. For one moment, across trampled mud and dying fires, the 2 lords beheld each other. The wolf who favored vows and the lion who favored victory. Yet Tywin measured the chaos. Tents collapsing, supply wagons alight, Edmure's knights punching holes, and chose retreat. Horns sounded 3 descending notes. Lannisters disengaged with brutal discipline, torching stores. By dawn, they'd pulled 10 miles west, leaving siege in charred splinters. Edmure met Ned on River's pebble shore where corpses washed like drink-soaked driftwood. Their embrace spoke volumes. Brynden clasped nephew's shoulder proudly. "Grain," was Ned's first word. 3 weeks left, and riverfolk starved, Edmure admitted. Lion burned outlying granaries. He kicked corpse ignobly. Must reclaim Storetown near Acorn Hall, else winter kills what swords spared.
Ned nodded.
We march tomorrow, relieve villages, then chase Tywin. He turned sweat-stained face to sunrise. Robb's raven awaited him in Brynden's tent. The young wolf had crossed at Stone Hedge, cutting off Kevin Lannister's slower wagons near the Duskendale Road, capturing hundreds of red cloaks and, more importantly, their food. Robb signaled intent to shadow Tywin's flank. Father closed eyes in gratitude. The pack hunted in concert now. 10 days of cat and mouse ensued across rain-soaked plains south of God's Eye. Tywin retreated, then pounced on stragglers, sowing doubt, but Robb's outriders counter-raided, herding lion cattle into northern cookfires. Ned's vanguard forced skirmishes that bled Tywin's horse lines. Still, the old lion refused open battle, knowing his numbers slipped daily. At night, his camps lit green torches, illusions of still-held wildfire to scare scouts. But Ned saw through. Ironborn raids complicated chessboard. Euron Greyjoy's Red Sail longships darted up Red Fork estuaries, torching hamlets before melting into fog. Lord Jason Mallister marched west to shield Seaguard, leaving Ned fewer archers. Yet ravens from Deepwood Motte swore Lady Asha Greyjoy had seized 10 towers against Euron, splintering Kraken alliances. Each day rippled new plots. One frosted morning near Harrenhal's blasted towers, Ned's scouts captured a courier-bearing letter sealed with golden rose. Under questioning, scroll revealed secret pledge. Mace Tyrell would yield fealty to King Stannis in exchange for naming Marjorie queen and sparing Highgarden from winter levy. Ned presented letter to council. Some urged burn the treacherous parchment. Others saw hope of final blow. A marriage ends 2 wars, Edmure argued. Stannis will wed no Tyrell, Brynden scoffed. His pride taller than Hightower, Ned considered. Stannis's wife Celis still lived, though union loveless. Yet in sickness world demands pragmatism. He decided to ride for Bitterbridge parley with Lady Olenna herself, cunning as any lion. He sent ravens ahead, proposed alliance of bread to break siege of capital by hunger. Before departure, he penned letter to Arya and Sansa in Queen's Landing. Mind your lessons, temper blades with books. War forges hearts, but peace hones them. He hoped they read by candle safe. The journey south took 3 days with small escort. Harwin, Palla, Maester Luwin, and Ser Courtenay Penrose newly exchanged from Siege of Storm's End. Roads treacherous, but Tyrell patrols cleared bandits. Bitterbridge's fields thrummed with tents colored gold and green. 30,000 fresh knights drilling beneath banners of rose and cornucopia. In center sat Lady Olenna's pavilion, patterned in thorny vines. Ned entered, helmet tucked under arm. The Queen of Thorns awaited like a wizened sparrow perched on embroidered cushion. Marjorie stood behind, eyes bright with curiosity, siblings arrayed like petals. "Ah, the Stark of legend," Olenna said, voice sharp as pruning shears. "I trust your joints endure southern damp?" "I have known worse," Ned answered. "White Harbor's fog is thicker, yet less perfumed." She waved shawl dismissively. "Let us prune nonsense. My grandson Renly lies in wormbed, his dreams devoured by shadow. The realm bleeds. You would anesthetize with Baratheon rule. We would water gardens with golden harvests. We propose wedding the girl behind me for your king. In exchange, we march rose lances to cage the lion's pride." Ned studied Marjorie. She met his gaze unflinching. "Stannis is wed," he reminded. "To a stone statue with pocks of piety," Olenna sniffed. Annulment not unheard of when safety of realm at stake. Annulments breed war of faith, Luwin murmured, but Olenna clicked tongue. Faith starves under siege as quick as sinners, good maester.
Ned Wade.
Political tangle risked fueling fanaticism in Stannis' Red Priests. But Tyrell grain could feed King's Landing, Tyrell riders could pin Tywin. He decided to carry offer back. Not promise, but possibility. Olenna read his face. You're an honorable beast, Lord Stark. Promise me this. If your king refuses, you at least release King's Landing small folk to our wagons. Children shouldn't gnaw bones of politics. That I vow, Ned said. They sealed parley with handshake. Marjorie curtsied slightly. If I sit a throne, she said softly, I will sew winter cloaks for every orphan in North. Ned almost smiled. He rode back to Harrenhal lines through gentle rain smelling of earth rather than blood, heart lighter. But war seldom yields straight roads. Crossing the Blackwater Rush near Old Field of Fire Monument, Ned's escort spotted column of rag-clad refugees straggling north. Among them tottered men in tattered gold cloaks. Former City Watch fleeing Tywin's retaliation at Sow's Mill. They recounted how Tywin's outriders captured Field Hospital and butchered healer sisters for aiding Stannis wounded. The lion roared still. That night Ned penned another letter to Stannis. Urged swift trial of Cersei and proclamation of Tywin's outlaw status. He added Tyrell proposal, delicately phrased. Raven dispatch before dawn. On return to Harrenhal camp he found Robb waiting. Grown even taller, cheeks hollow from command's weight but eyes alight. Father and son clasped arms, then embraced. How long since Winterfell's training yard under crisp spring sky? Lifetimes. News exchanged. Robb's victories, Bolton's grudging support, Karstark's thirst yet unsated. They walked ramparts cracked by dragonfire centuries old. I feared letters would be graves, Robb admitted. Yet here you stand, city won, sisters safe. Safe is fleeting. Ned gestured to west where Lannister fires still dotted hills. Lion yet prowls, but pack stands stronger. Robb nodded. Gray wind agrees. The dire wolf glided along parapet shadows, golden eyes watchful. He nudged Ned's gauntlet affably. Plans forged. Robb's outriders to harry Tywin's foragers. Ned's infantry to dig trench network guarding ford. Edmure to lead relief convoys to Riverrun and Fairmarket. Winter wagons from north expected soon, carrying dried fish, oats, salt pork. War turned to attrition. Letters arrived from Queen's Landing. Stannis accepted Tyrell marriage in principle. Celis to retire to Mother House on Lys under vow. Freeing Crown to wed anew for realm. Ceremony delayed until Moon's turn. Olenna invited. Grain convoy prepared. Additionally, the first High Septon elected under Stannis recognized decree of incest, rallying many faithful. Good, yet darker tidings. Cersei hung herself in Dragonstone's cell, leaving note of blood and wine. Tommen vanished, suspected spirited away by Kettle Black agents. Jaime, upon hearing, attempted escape, subdued, now under heavier guard. Ned felt pity even for Lioness, the wheel ground all. He prayed Sansa never learned those final screams. Weeks blended to campaign of mud and frost. Tywin's host dwindled, starvation nipping edges. At last he broke east for Lannisport, hoping to regroup beyond Golden Tooth. Ned and Robb pursued but cautious of mountain passes booby-trapped. In Whispering Wood Valley, a place of fateful echoes, Robb's outriders snared Kevin's rearguard. Battle swift, humane. Kevin captured, treated honorable. Ned offered terms. Release small folk and surrender arms. Gain safe travel back under oath not to take up sword for a year. Many accepted. Some refused and were imprisoned. Tywin reached Golden Tooth but found gates barred by his own cousin Lord Davin, under order of Lady Jenna, who now favored negotiation seeing crown lost. And so the old lion with few claws left faced prospect of parley. Ned sent riders. Surrender sword, answer for crimes, realm will judge. Days passed. Finally white flag. On crisp morning beneath red maple outside castle, Ned met Tywin Lannister. The lion wore plain steel, knot of graying hair at nape. His green eyes burned but voice chilled. You have traitor's courage, Stark. I carried King's seal, not traitors. Ned presented parchment of Robert's decree once more, ink smudged but legible. Your daughter's deceit birthed this war. Let it end. Tywin's jaw ticked. War ends when debt paid. Then pay. Answer Council of Lords. Swear fealty. Your house may retain lands if guilt not proved mortal. Silence weighed. Crows cawed. At last Tywin drew dagger. Slow. Not in threat but surrender. Laid it across palm. Point to himself, hilt extended. I bend under one condition. My son Jaime's life spared. Ned met his gaze. He will stand trial but life not mine to take. If gods judge him, he may join Night's Watch. A lion in black. Tywin mused, bitter amusement. So be it. They clasped wrists. Peace blossomed fragile as frost flower. Not all rejoiced. Karstark growled vengeance undone. Even some Stormlanders spat at leniency. Ned convened war council. Reminded justice not slaughter builds realm. Brynden backed. Robb lent weight. The North's honor stands above blood feud. Slowly descent cooled. Letters flowed to Stannis. Lion bent knee. Tyrell grain inbound. Ironborn threat receding. As snows thickened, armies demobilized to winter quarters. Riverrun became hub of reconstruction. Blackfish oversaw clearing of burnt fields. Edmure negotiated with Septons for seed loans. Robb rode north escorting wagons of refugees and grain, to see Winterfell repaired and Brother Bran's legs healed by Maester Arts rumored from Karth. Ned traveled south again, daughters and Maester in train, to witness royal marriage sealing alliances. Along King's Road he saw freeholders rebuilding sacked barns, children chasing snowflakes instead of cinders. Where lion banners once flew, new sigils of stag and direwolf waved, backed by rose supply carts, bread sharing across lines. At Bitterbridge's ancient septri under candlelit vaults, King Stannis wedded Marjorie Tyrell before throng of lords. The bride in ivory lace flashed nervous but steady smile. Stannis grim but resolute. High Septon blessed union, for strength of kingdom and succor of needy. Ned watched from front pew with Sansa and Arya, girls grown wise. Sansa murmured prayers, eyes bright with tears of many stripes. Arya fingered needle's hilt but smiled at brotherly knights. Feast followed. Olenna quipped. Davos laughed. Even Stannis raised single toast. Ned sipped moderate wine, scanning hall for conspirators' old habits. None moved. Peace fragile maybe, but real tonight. Later he sought quiet in herb garden where moonlight silvered frost. There he found Queen Marjorie already, cloak around shoulders. She bowed. Lord Stark, you saved a realm. Many hands, he replied. She studied moon. I will try to thaw his stern heart. Realm needs warmth too. Pray your gods he lets me. He will. Under ice, rivers run. Ned glanced at stars. And spring follows. She nodded, hope in gaze. Winter's first deep snowfall embraced King's Landing that New Year's morn. Children unfamiliar with white rejoiced, hurling lumps at passing knights. Inside Red Keep's refurbished solar, Ned met with Davos and Luwin reviewing new code of justice Stannis desired. Abolish excessive taxes, limit noble levies, impose rotating small council seats by region. Sansa joined them, requested apprenticeship under Luwin to learn governance. Ned beamed. Arya trained with new master-at-arms, a Braavosi Sells word recommended by Davos. Letters from Bran told of studies in ancient histories of children of forest. From Rickon of New Puppy, peace might last. Yet Ned remembered words of old Nan. There are always more tales. Beyond wall, ravens whispered of great cold and white shadows. In far east, dragons rumored hatched in shadow of unknown queen. Ned wrote to Lord Commander Jorah Mormont. Watch roosts above roads. Send word of any dread. The watch answered, we stand. One pale dawn months later Ned stood atop rebuilt Tower of Hand, surveying city blanketed by snow, smoke curling from chimneys. Horses pulled sledges of onion soup, children following. Bells pealed gentle. A seagull alighted on Merlin, cocked head as if expecting crumb.
Ned flikt krøst.
Harwin approached. Riders from north, my lord. Robb returns. Ned's heart swelled. Prepare feast. Winterfell's tables travel. He descended stairs, boots crunching stray ice. As he passed corridors, servants bowed. Gold cloaks now bore mixed stagwolf devices. Even red cloaks patrolled under unified badge. Peace in tapestry. He entered courtyard as gates opened. Through swirling flurries came his son, cloaked wolf fur, gray wind pacing. Behind marched retinue of free folk disguised as fishermen, envoys from Craster's new holdings, seeking southern trade. Robb dismounted, embraced father. Grain plentiful, walls strong, Robb reported. But tales from beyond frost, dead things moving. Ned's eyes hardened. We faced shadows of men. We shall stand against those of winter. Father and son walked through falling snow toward Great Hall where fires roared. Overhead ravens wheeled cawing, as if reading lines already in motion, threads of fate still weaving. Yet for a moment their steps rang steady, unhurried. The realm breathed, and somewhere north of Shivering Sea, a horn of ice sounded thrice across endless night, unheard by those who dreamed of spring. But Ned Stark would be ready. He always had been. The glow of braziers painted the freshly whitewashed stones of the small council chamber in warm amber. But outside the arrow slits winter's first true blizzard clawed across the rooftops of King's Landing. Teeth of wind rattled shutters, rattled nerves, rattled the fragile crust of peace that Eddard Stark had helped shape from months of war and loss. Yet within these walls, where once Cersei's soft velvet intrigue had ruled, there sat a remade council forged of sterner alloy. Davos Seaworth in salt-bleached wool, Maester Luwin in gray, Brienne of Tarth representing Storm's End in shining sapphire cloak, Lady Olenna's grandson Ser Garland standing for Highgarden, and the blackfish Brynden Tully worn as flint unearthed from the tumblestone's banks. Ned presided at table's northern end. Hand-clasped wooden direwolf nested before him. Stannis Baratheon himself occupied the high seat beside the hearth, his face a study in iron restraint, though the shadows cast by leaping flames warped his features into something almost spectral. Beside him, Marjorie Tyrell's delicate gloved fingers drummed soundless over parchment of grain tallies. She made no comment, yet her hazel eyes flicked toward each speaker, gathering threads for unseen weaving. Davos cleared his throat. We have word Lord Tywin proceeds along the coastal road, hindered by snow and lacking forage. Still, his rearguard cut 3 of our scouts near Hayford. He bends knee in parchment but still bears claw upon the march. Stannis grunted. We will not slay those who yield, yet nor do we grow blind. He turned to Garland Tyrell. Your father withdraws to Highgarden? Aye, your grace, Garland said. Lord Mace sees more value in plowshares now that the peace harvest he promised has sown favor. He keeps 15,000 knights in field around Bitterbridge to deter raiders, but none will march east without your banner. Good. Stannis's blue gaze shifted to Ned. North and south sow grain, but winter rides fast. How long before storehouses grown full enough to weather these storms? Ned spread charts. White Harbor's fleets unload cod and salted herring daily, but roads south of the neck clog with drifts. We must open the King's winter roads, send teams of small folk with axes to cut paths, and we require more river barges before the Blackwater freezes thick. Davos followed. Ser Imry's shipwrights can fashion flat-bottom skiffs from Stormland's cedar. If you grant coin, they launch within fortnight. Olenna's grandson slid pouch across table. Highgarden's coffers stand open for the realm's mouth. A starving kingdom feeds no roses. Brienne nodded. And starving soldiers desert. Her voice rumbled like distant thunder. Ned marked agreements in ledger. Then by dawn wagons roll. Harwin leads road cutters north. Ser Ronnet dispatches cedarmen to shipyards. House Tyrell funds timber. Tasks parceled. The council drifted into looming dread none wished voice. The threat beyond wall, whispered in ravens' wings. Yet they had no men to spare, not while lion talons scraped at edges. Kraken sails skulked off coast, and Dornish spears tested marcher passes. When final scroll sealed, Stannis rose. "We gather again on full moon. Until then may fires burn bright." He stalked out, the new queen gliding after, cloak whispering rose perfume. Counselors followed, leaving Ned and Davos alone amid the hush. Davos tapped empty goblet. "Never thought I'd trade smugglers' salt for council's dust."
Ned smiled thinly.
"Salt may yet season dust enough to swallow. 7 keep us." Davos straightened, offering calloused hand. "Sleep, my lord. The world can wait a night." But sleep rarely courted Ned easily now. Hours later he walked silent corridors, torch in hand, seeking calm in flicker of light on stone. Footsteps guided him to Rookery Tower where ravens rustled like black snow within gloom. Maester Pylus, brought from Dragonstone to relieve Luwin some duties, knelt over fresh arrival, teasing scroll from leg. "Frozen feathers but strong spirit," Pylus murmured, unrolling parchment. He frowned. From Castle Black, marked urgent. Ned's pulse leapt. He thanked the maester and broke seal. Jon Snow's tight script unfurled across rough paper. "Father, the night's watch rides thin as frost hair. White walkers, aye true as tale, skulk in haunted forests. We lost Dyer's author and Jafer, returned wights. Samwell's ravens bear scant wings left. Need men, steel, dragonglass, and truth. Winter marches faster than crows. Your blood, Lord Commander Jon Snow." The words bled cold into Ned's marrow. White walkers, beyond wall myth matured into meat. He pictured ghostly eyes like moonlit ice, corpses wreathed in hoarfrost. No petty realm quarrel but destruction of all. He folded letter, heart thunderous. Next morning he stormed to Stannis' solar. Davos already there, reading duplicate scroll. Brienne paced, hand on sword. Stannis leaned over map of the wall, jaw working. "Jon's plight cannot be dismissed," Ned said without greeting. "We must send north relief." Stannis nodded. "I sail to Eastwatch with fleet come thaw. Until then we muster wagons of obsidian and steel. Thaw may months away."
Ned planted fist.
"The wall may fall sooner," Stannis considered. "Then we ride by King's Road, light and fast. Direwolves clear drifts better than oxen." Davos objected. "Leave capital in winter's jaws? Leave kingdom to die if others breach." Stannis shot back. His gaze pinned Ned. "Will you ride, Stark?" "My sword belongs to North," Ned answered. "It ever has." They clasped arms, pack sealed. Preparations churned. Queen's Guard supplied 50 of finest courser horses. Wildfire alchemists provided dragonglass tip spears salvaged from ancient Valyrian hoard under Dragonstone. Blacksmiths forged rings of obsidian embedded in iron links, new armor against undead. Arya insisted on joining Vanguard, needle flashing. Sansa begged to ride as envoy of peace to northern houses. Ned refused both. Hearts heavy, he kept them south. "Protect the city. Teach children songs of courage," he told Sansa. "Train new guard your footwork," he told Arya, gifting her collection of Braavosi manuals. Robb returned again, this time with gray wind harnessed to sled bearing bundles of shaggy furs. "If father rides, son rides beside. Winterfell needs warden," Ned argued. "Bran rules with Maester Caliot," Robb countered. "Rickon hunts our woods. The wolves of Winterfell can spare one tooth." They clasped forearms, agreement forged. Council trimmed convoy to 200. Stannis, Ned, Robb, Brienne, Davos, Melisandre the Red Woman. Stannis insisted. Plus 30 knights, 50 archers, 20 smiths, septons, and hostlers. Behind, wagons of grain, axes, dog sleds. Snow chewed at hooves as they departed King's Landing by dawn torch. Citizens lined streets, silent but respectful, many kneeling. A woman pushed child forth. Ned dismounted, pressed carved direwolf to boy's palm. "Hold hope," he murmured. They rode north. First weeks passed under low iron sky. At every village Ned held assemblies. Reading Jon's letter aloud, recruiting volunteers. Some men balked. Others, remembering old tales by hearth, joined ranks. At Maidenpool 5 blacksmiths swore to sharpen dragonglass. At Harrenhal's shell 40 archers deserted Tywin's disbanded levies to pledge bows. Beyond Trident snow deepened knee-high. Food scarce, they burned dead orchards for fire. Melisandre strode barefoot atop drifts, whispering to flames. Men muttered but none challenged after she ignited snow to steam with single word. Crossing the neck proved worst. Blizzards turned causeway to icy marsh. 3 wagons sank. Horses drowned screaming. Brienne dragged 2 hostlers out by rope, frostbitten but alive. Robb lost 1 finger to cold despite maester salves. Yet they pressed. At Moat Cailin, banners of the flayed man flew. Bolton guards posted by fear not love. Ned rode ahead under parley flag. Lord Roose Bolton emerged pale, expression unreadable. "You ride north on King's whim," Bolton observed. "On realm's need," Ned answered. "Stand aside or answer for obstruction." Bolton's pale eyes flickered. "Winter spares no man. I crave not its teeth," he signaled. Gates opened, yet Ned felt daggered stares. The Boltons would remember. Beyond Deepwood's pine wall, wild lynxes watched from branches. Snow glowed eerie green in northern lights. When they reached Winterfell, bells pealed fury of joy. Bran wheeled to greet them, dire wolves at heel. Rickon, now lanky youth, boasted brace of rabbits from morning trap. Catelyn wept into Ned's arms by Godswood, but respite short. 7 days later, horns sounded across battlements. The King's Road watchers sighted shambling figures south of Last Hearth. Dead men glowing pale. Ravens from Shadow Tower spoke of storms blacker than night swirling beyond Frostfangs. Stannis wasted no hour. They rode again, north and colder. At Queen's Crown, they crossed Tarnwater on ice thick as glass. At night camp, Melisandre cast fire in brazier, flames coiling into shapes of horned giants and pale horsemen. "Cold brings end of men," she warned Ned by crimson glow. "But light may birth sword of dawn. Your blood carries song of ice." He stiffened. "My blood is of north only. Blood of winter maybe, but also fire hidden." Her red eyes burned bright. He walked away. On final league to Castle Black, wind grew so fierce men tied ropes between saddles to keep from blowing lost. Twin beacons on Watch's towers shone dim amber. Horn blasts rolled 3, filling valley with dread. Gates swung open to reveal Jon Snow leaning on Longclaw, armor rimmed with rime, face pinched by burden. He clasped Ned's forearm. "You came. Always," Ned said, voice rough. Jon led them to courtyard crammed with gaunt brothers, rag-wrapped children, and giants. Real giants, looming shaggy under icy pelts. One knelt, offering mammoth bone club as token of truce.
Magma tundo weg gret Sautanas, Jon translated.
He fights for dawn. Effulgent torches cast quivering light over faces. Free folk survivors side by side with black cloaks, archers notching dragonglass. Over ramparts Ned glimpsed horizon blooming sickly green, aurora stained by distant fires. Wind carried faint howl like wolves but deeper, older. Brief council in Lord Commander's tower. Jon, Ned, Stannis, Melisandre, Tormund Giantsbane representing free folk, Cotter Pike from Eastwatch, Bowen Marsh still distrustful. Samwell Tarly laid out maps dotted with marks where patrols vanished. Daylight shorter, shadows move though sun up. Whites craft ice weapons now, shatter steel. "We bury dead then burn," Jon added. "But walkers raise new hosts nightly. Without dragonglass we lose ground." Ned unfurled Wagon's manifest. 3,000 obsidian arrowheads, 500 spear tips, 50 blades. More en route. Stannis thumped gauntlet. "And King's justice. Every man here fights or yields. Pride no coin against dead." Tormund chuckled. "Kingly words, Baratheon. Dead come for all." Bowen Marsh objected. "Cannot arm wildlings." Jon's temper flared. "Better armed wildlings than dead wildlings at your throat." Argument raged until Ned's voice cut ice. "We choose life and lose prejudice, else world ends. I will arm them myself. Silence fell. Bowen, face flushed, nodded. That eve blacksmiths labored through wind, forging dragonglass blades fitted to weirwood shafts. Maesters brewed wildfire tar to coat palisades. Masons reinforced tunnel gates with ironwood beams Rob's men felled weeks prior. Snow deepened. On second night, horns blasted once, then thrice. Scouts stumbled inside, frostbitten lips telling of white walkers massing in woods, giants of ice, spiders big as hounds weaving crystal silk across snowdrifts. Dawn would bring siege. Ned stood atop the wall, air so cold breath chimed ice motes. He wore armor of ringmail studded with black glass shards. Gift from Sam, wolf pelt over shoulders. Beside him Stannis brandished Lightbringer, sword now faintly glowing red though flame barely felt. Below, the world a sea of white and shadow. Torches dotted the ditch. Free folk formed wedge ranks. Thens with obsidian-tipped pikes, spearwives with longbow. Knights watchmanned ballistae loaded with fire barrels. Davos supervised fleet of oil-filled cauldrons. Melisandre raised arms. Words of Valyrian spilled. Flames at bowl of brazier burst high. Light spilled across rampart, illuminating shapes approaching. Gaunt figures clad in ice, eyes blue as heart of winter. Thousands. Far right, lumbering mammoths bearing bone armor reanimated. Jon inhaled. Remember, Shatterwalker, White's Fall. He gripped Longclaw. The battle for dawn began with silence. Walkers halted line, air itself freezing. Then one screeched, a sound of razors on ice. White surged, siege of heartbeat, arrows tipped with dragonglass sleet. Each strike dropping white inert. Ballista bolts drenched in wildfire snapped mammoth spines, green flame devouring. Yet still they came wave after wave. Walkers advanced calm, swords of pale crystal. One leapt ramp one-handed. Ned met it. Long sister clanged against ice, sparks and frost. Cold burned his arms through steel. He parried downward, kicked. Melisandre hurled flask. Wildfire burst. Walker shrieked, cracking. Ned thrust glass dagger into its throat. It shattered, and 100 whites below collapsed like strings cut. But others climbed. Giants broke palisade gates. Free folk countercharged. Magmar Tundo Weg wrestling an ice giant in thunder of clubs. Tormund swung obsidian axe, carving shining fractures. On western parapet, Robb fought 3 walkers at once, gray wind tearing white throats. A walker struck Robb's helm, denting. Gray wind leapt, jaw-clamping arm, ice sword clattered. Robb's dragonglass dagger finished. Yet numbers threatened. Jon signaled horns, signal for cauldrons. Davos's men tilted. Boiling wildfire cascaded, rivers of jade flame carving trenches. Snow hissed into steam, whites lit like dry straw. Stannis charged gate with Lightbringer blazing red gold, blade vaporizing ice. He cut swath to giant supporting siege ladder. Giant fell crashing. Still dawn away.
Nedbriding ragged, frostbitten tå snøm.
He rallied archers to resupply from wagons, arrows running low. Melisandre chanted stronger. Flames leapt unnatural. Suddenly sky split with roar, not thunder but reptile. A shape blacker than night swept overhead, wings thundering hurricane. Dragon, scales shimmered shadow, eyes molten gold. It spewed torrent of black fire, strange absence of light that sucked heat and hope. It scorched whites yet left walkers unharmed. Fire beyond mortal ken. On its neck rode silhouette in obsidian crown. Night's king? Bowman froze. Terror seized lines. Ned shouted for ballistae. Bolts shot but dragon wheeled agile. It vomited dark flame on east tower. Stone crumbled. Melisandre cried Azor high and thrust torch toward Stannis. Lightbringer blazed brighter, true flame now golden. She screamed prayer. Stannis hurled sword skyward. Arc of light met dragon breath. Where lights collided, explosion of white radiance rippled, clearing clouds, revealing dawn's first blush. Dragon shrieked wounded, black fire sputtering. It banked north, vanishing into storm. Dawn broke fully, Walkers paused as sun crests spilled. Their bodies shimmered, cracking. With joint shriek they turned, retreating into forest trailing frost. Remaining wights collapsed silent. Battle done. Ramparts strewn with corpses human and not. Ned, bleeding from ear, surveyed ruin. But wall still stood, gate though battered, realm breathing. Jon knelt by fallen brother, tears freezing. Ned rested hand on son's shoulder. The night is long, but we still hold watch. Stannis approached, face soot-streaked. Lightbringer dim again, Melisandre whispered. War for dawn begun, not ended.
Ned nodded.
Then we prepare. Throughout day they burned dead, mended wounds, tallied losses, 1 in 3. But morale steadied, proof that walkers could be beaten. Raven flew south, first battle won. Dragon of darkness sighted. Need dragons of light. At Winterfell, Bran looked skyward and felt tug through roots of weirwood, threads of ancient power stirring. In King's Landing, Sansa led newly formed Weavers' Guild to stitch cloaks for Northern War. Arya drilled street guard recruits. Across Narrow Sea, rumors reached silver-haired Queen that Westeros needed Dragonfire of Sun. She read letter carried by black-winged wyvern. Dawn calls to blood of fire, and thus the realm braced for storm upon snow, fire against night, hearts of men tested beyond crowns. But as long as wolves howled together with stags, roses, salmon, krakens even, hope lingered like ember within winter wind. A hush settled over the wall in the days that followed, the kind of broad, aching silence that descends only when the living have wrestled a sliver of dawn from an endless night. Day after day the wind returned to its older patterns, sighing through ice corridors instead of howling like a hunted beast. Men who had stood shoulder to shoulder against whites now found themselves blinking in a brilliance of winter sunlight so bright it stung their eyes. They patched the gate where the Giants' Club had sundered ironwood, shoveled the drifts from the courtyards, and burned the last heaps of corpse ash until even the smell of charred flesh faded. Only the stains of frozen blood in the stone's deeper cracks hinted at how close doom had crept. Eddard Stark spent dawns patrolling the parapets with Jon Snow and Robb, assessing every breach. Their boots scraped across blue-white hoarfrost, and steam curled from their breath in twin plumes. Jon spoke little. The mantle of Lord Commander clung heavy, and he wore exhaustion like a second cloak. At times Ned glimpsed a wild grief in his son's eyes, the toll exacted by burying brothers, by losing green recruits whose names had not yet been etched upon the watch's rolls. Ned answered it with steady presence. No words, only the silent promise that a father's shoulder would not falter. South of the gate, sprawled across the cleared space where the undead giants had battering rammed the stockade, smiths hammered obsidian ridge or into arrowheads that glimmered like captured night. Samwell Tarly had recalled a vein of black glass buried in a collapsed First Men barrow half a league from the gorge. Now carts came daily, overflowing with stone shards that bit like broken stars when fashioned to steel. The then smiths sang as they worked, deep-voiced and resonant, melding Valyrian chants with free folk war verses, the blend eerie yet strangely stirring. From those forges drifted an unspoken unity, wildling and crow and Northman in toil together, proving that common peril could unmake even centuries of hate. Beyond the wall, haunted forest groaned beneath a fresh weight of ice. Jon ordered scouts out in pairs, a brother of the watch and a free folk pathfinder, each bound to burn the other's corpse should cold claim them. Some never returned, but fewer vanished with each day that passed, and soon even Craster's Keep, plundered and abandoned, registered as no more than a hollow on the map. White sightings dwindled. The reanimated beasts that had thrashed against the wall's fires lay in shatters where they fell, evaporating into dust when morning sun licked them. It was not victory. The dragon of shadow still circled in rumor, and somewhere in that endless icy expanse moved the White Walkers in silence. But it was a respite, and men clung to it. Come mid-moon, Stannis Baratheon convened a war moot in the King Tower's shadow. Raven ink had barely dried on letters announcing the alliance of every northern holdfast except the Dreadfort, yet already lords and chiefs arrived. Alice Karstark gaunt and frost-cheeked, the Umbers bearing a new leather standard stitched from lion hides, Lady Meege Mormont clad head to toe in ebon bear fur, plus spearwives who laughed at ceremony but stood stone still when Ned began to speak. Giants lingered at the perimeter, eyes the color of old ice, massive fingers carving mammoth bone scrimshaw. The rich tang of pine pitch from torches mingled with mammoth fat candle smoke, drifting upward through the dark vault of the sky. Ned opened with a roll call of the dead, name after name lifted into the pre-dawn hush, until his voice cracked and even the fiercest then fell silent. When the last echo faded, he told them they had purchased no more than the chance to breathe and plan. The others would return, stronger, cleverer, perhaps on wings of that night dragon that carried black fire and sorrow in equal measure. If the living expected to survive the long night storming toward them, the single wall would not suffice. They must build a chain of fires clear across the wild, reclaim the ruined forts between New Gift and the Frostfangs, flood the Gift with grain, and extend dragonglass mines so deep the earth itself would bleed black against the cold. Stannis stepped forward next, Lightbringer resting in a cradle of burnt leather. Gold embers still flickered under its fuller, hinting at the furnace heat that had erupted when the blade clashed with the dragon's darkness. The king's speech was spare. 7 oaths, each demanding obedience from clan to crown, answered by 7 pledges hammered on shields. He ended with a decree that surprised the hall. The free folk would be offered settlement between the shivering sea and the long lake, land that no kneeler could till in winter, provided they swear before their weirwoods to stand watch. Huts would rise where wild camps had scatter. And for every clan chief who bent knee, a black cloak's raven would carry the news to King's Landing, demanding equal rations from the realm's storehouses. Ned spotted Tormund Giant's bane grin wide as a canyon before clapping Jon on the back hard enough to stagger him. Lady Meege spoke last. Her voice rattled like sword edges struck together. They could not secure the north alone, she said. Southern kings must rally, and soon. The rumors had reached even Bear Island. Karthus fleets ferrying red priests to Pentos, a silver queen riding east on 3 full-grown dragons. Whispers that the Dothraki Sea had churned into war once more. Fire both saved and scourged. They needed alliances to match flame to frost, else the realm's heart would crack like thin ice. When the mood adjourned, Ned walked the outer parapet with Robb. Far below, war wolves coursed between fires, their tracks etched into drifts. Robb had grown leaner, the curve of his jaw sharpening into angles more like Ned's own. Yet he still had the gift of boyish warmth, and when Grey Wind galloped by to nose Ned's limp fur glove, father and son laughed as one. Brief laughter, though, because Robb had come bearing news. A raven from Winterfell declared Ramsay Snow now styled himself Bolton despite his father's cool submission. The Dreadfort had sealed its gates, and riders wearing Flayedman badges had torched 2 Karstark farms east of the Weeping Water. Blood answered peace as ever. Ned's sigh plumed white. Roose Bolton wagers he can bide his time, hoard grain behind stone, emerge when the world exhausts itself. We can't spare host to storm the Dreadfort, Robb muttered. No, Ned agreed, but we can squeeze him. Letters penned that night instructed every Carhold and Umber outrider to shadow Bolton foragers and burn his hunting traps. Food would bleed out of those walls faster than any siege ladder. Cold is a patient ally, Ned wrote. Let it pry that gate for us. Despite strategy, Ned could not shake unease. He took to climbing the Bridge of Skulls each twilight, gazing north across the valley where walker tracks, faintly visible, reminded him the enemy marched in circles beyond sight. On one such evening, when the aurora shimmered green curtains along the horizon, he found Melisandre kneeling on the black ice itself, eyes closed, red gems around her throat pulsing like coals. For a time he watched in silence, wary. Then at last he asked what visions she read in flames that did not burn. She answered that the darkness they'd fought was but an outrider, that the true Night King's power coiled around the 3 horns of winter, ice, shadow, and storm, that the dragon they'd wounded bore one of those horns within the marrow of its skull, and if it healed it would return thrice stronger. Lightbringer alone could sever that horn, but Lightbringer's fire guttered because the steel lacked a final tempering. The blood of a king who had never worn a crown. Her gaze burned into Ned as though she sought to kindle him. He met that heat with the memory of Lyanna's last breath and his promise. He would suffer no more children born to prophecy's furnace. Without a word he turned away, the hem of his black cloak whispering across the frost. Spring seemed more myth than memory by the time the first wagon train rattled up the King's Road. Tyrell grain sacks stacked like steps to a harvest moon, wheels frozen solid until fires thawed grease each morning. Their arrival stirred hope. Every man received extra loaf, every child an apple preserved in honey. Yet rumors rode the wagons too. Daenerys Stormborn had landed at Sunspear, banners of Sunspear and three-headed dragon braided above her fleet, Dornish spearmen cheering a queen born of fire. Some said she meant to march north and melt the wall herself. Others whispered of ravens exchanged with Stannis, offers of truce sealed by shared enemy. Lady Olenna, newly arrived with her throng of handmaidens, cuffed any man who repeated such tales too loudly, but the talk grew. Within the wall's frost-rimmed war room, Ned listened to these reports beside maps where raven quills pinned Dornish sigils on the narrow sea's lip. Robb argued they needed Dragonfire if the Night King fielded a creature of darkness. Jon bristled. Dragons answered only their Targaryen rider. What king would yield command of battle to a stranger's flame? Davos counseled caution, recounting how Wildfire's green fury had saved King's Landing but nearly destroyed it too. Stannis pondered and asked Melisandre, would Fire of Dragon prove light or shadow? She smiled enigmatically, her silence louder than any yes. The decision delayed, as many did, until new messengers came riding hard from Eastwatch. The sea had frozen in a single night, smooth as mirror glass all the way to Skagos, and upon that ice marched an army of wights so vast it looked like Stormfront. Thousands, maybe tens. Worse, 2 ships anchored in the bay had been seized by cold. Crew turned white before torches reached their decks. Eastwatch's outer palisade had already fallen. Jon wasted not a heartbeat. He set 500 men on the King Road north of Castle Black and dispatched ravens begging any green land south to send torches, oil, anything that burned. Ned committed 200 free folk to join them, plus every dragonglass spear they could spare without stripping the main garrison. Giants lumbered forth too, wielding tree trunk mauls glistening with black glass studs hammered by thens. The wall itself thrummed. Knights echoed with distant horns. 1 blast, 2, 3, each answered by watchposts relaying calls across icy miles. Ned dreamt of that triple note, saw its ripple in spiderweb cracks across crystal. Knew somewhere out in the white a mind older than winter listened as well. Days blurred into drilling, forging, scouting. Bran arrived by Ravencage basket, high in Maester's rig that lifted him over notches in the wall's lip, his direwolf summer scouting below. He came on a sled of weirwood planks drawn by ravens once thought mythic. Great stormcloud birds with wingspans of 6 feet, bred in secret by crannogmen, trained to haul rope lines. The boy's eyes had turned pale as morning mist, pupils swirling endless gray. He spoke little, but when he touched the heart tree transplanted from Winterfell saplings and planted within Castle Black's yard, its face bled fresh red sap in the shape of new eyes, wide, wary, watching the sky. Bran whispered that the children of the forest were awake in their caves, singing songs older than the moon, shaping dragonglass arrows not for men but for the last green seer yet to walk. When Ned asked what that meant, Bran only shivered and said, "The roots know which branches must fall." No raven challenged that omen. Finally, word arrived from Winterfell. Roose Bolton's gate had cracked under its own hunger. Karstark outriders found the Dreadfort's yard littered with empty grain jars. Inside, Ramsay's hounds devoured their master at last. The surviving soldiers opened doors rather than share his fate. Ned read the raven aloud to the war room, then burned it. Vengeance, he told them, sometimes required no blade, only patience. By the solstice of deep winter, the next enemy wave struck. A chill colder than the first blizzard fell over the wall. No snow this time, only air so brittle lungs ached. White scouts approached not under storm but silence, their limbs limned with sheets of hoarfrost shining like glass armor. They tested the gate in 2s, 3s, waiting hours until archers dropped them. On the 3rd night, the watchers saw shapes flickering in the open. Half-dead children dragging blackened iron cauldrons on sleds, leaving trails of blue flame that froze the ground. Where the flame touched wall ice, cracks spread from within, spidering deeper each hour. Ned ordered blacksmiths to rivet dragonglass plates over the vulnerable sections, thin edges placed like patchwork scales, hoping cold would not shatter both. He also fielded a new tactic. Lines of archers armed with great yew longbows and shafts tipped with obsidian barbs the size of a grown man's thumb, fletched bright red so watchers could trace arc. At moonrise they let fall a single volley upon the cauldron crews. Every shard found mark, little victims slithering still but unable to carry their frostfire further. The Night King answered by reclaiming corpses of those shafts, somehow twisting the arrows into black vapor that drifted back upward. Melisandre's ruby flared hot at her throat as she raised Lightbringer in counter, humming guttural Valyrian. Through Watcher's eyes, Ned saw faint ripples of red light mesh with the black vapor, neutralizing it into ash. If magic be real, they thought, then let opposing lights duel. But the real hammer fell a week thereafter, when the Dragon of Night returned, wings torn yet healed by crystalline scar tissue that glittered under Aurora. It loomed above the forest, riderless now, and vomited that absence flame upon Eastwatch's main tower, collapsing half its height. Jon's counterballistae loosed 2 steel cable harpoons. One missed, but the second pierced a wing, embedding deep. The beast roared, flail-lashed chain behind, dragging 20 men from ramparts like toys. Still it escaped, wing veering awkward but intact. Eastwatch smoldered into ruin, yet the breach brought no follow-on walker attack. Instead, as mourners dug out stubborn embers, a single figure limped from the tree-lean beneath a ragged banner of blackened ice. A white walker alone, its gauntlet held high in truce, azure eyes pulsing. Ned, Jon, Stannis, and Melisandre met beyond the shattered gate amid frost fog swirling from the ruin. The walker spoke not with mouth but with rattling shards of ice that formed glyphs in the air. Bran interpreted through green sight from the wall's parapet. Trade, the horn, the dragon, an exchange of breath. No one understood. The walker extended bony hand toward Jon. Within its palm lay a piece of black obsidian shaped like dragon horn, ridged and spiraled as though grown from spire of palace lost beneath snow. At its center glimmered molten gold light. Melisandre trembled. She claimed it was one of the 3 horns of winter. Fragments of prophecy flooded Ned's thoughts. 3 horns bound to shadow, ice, storm. Might sunder world or save it. Could they trust what gift the enemy offered? The walker pointed beyond the wall to the star-choked north, then back to the horn. Its gesture spoke of parley, maybe of challenge. Bran's eyes rolled white. He saw flashes, dragons spiraling in darkness, children of the forest forging ice to trap flame, a broken pact ages old. Stannis pressed Lightbringer's tip to the snow. Take it, study, prepare. Jon reached and wrapped warwool gloves around Horn. Cold like death but pulsing with heat of sun seared his fingers. The walker retreated into mist, leaving nothing but crunch of frost. There in that silence Ned sensed a new arc unspooling, threat and hope interwoven like direwolf's shag and stag's antler. They had repelled one army but awakened bargaining older than men. Politics of the living would now mingle with politics of shadow. Messages flew on raven wings to Dorne, to Highgarden, to the Silver Queen encamped in water gardens of Sunspear. The call was clear. Bring your dragons north, or the night dragon shall devour dawn. Horn or no horn. Daenerys replied, 3 dragons come only if the realm acknowledges her children's flight path. 1 year of supply from southern grain ports to accompany them, and safe skies. Marjorie and Olenna used every ounce of floral diplomacy to coax lords into agreement. Davos sold the plan to Storm's End. Brynden Tully to Riverlords. Ned wrote personally to Robb, to Sansa, to every bannerman. This war bigger than crowns. Winter tightened its grip. The Bay of Seals froze so thick a full column of Karstark cavalry rode across. The Night King's forces hovered just out of dragonglass arrow range, sentencing encampment to vigilance unending. But inside Castle Black's repaired hall, Ned saw something new. Crows laughing with ends over sour goat milk stew. A giant and a Mormont girl arm wrestling. A Kingsguard knight teaching spearwives to brace pikes. And Bran, still pale-eyed, coaxing children of forest myths from arrow shafts for the younger recruits to memorize. Out of fear and Frost was shaping a hammer strong enough to bang on Dawns and Vil. This blow would ring soon. When the first southern dragons appeared on horizon, 3 dark dots gliding above a low amber sun, the watchers lined ramparts in awed hush. Their wings beat thunder that scattered ravens like corn husks, and their shadows washed across the whitened forest, melting drifts in brief ripples of steam. They landed upon the frozen floor of the haunts with gusts that toppled a dozen tents, and the Silver Queen, dismounted in furs dyed deep Targaryen red. She bowed to Jon Snow, to Ned Stark, to Stannis Baratheon, one after another, claiming no throne this day, only the chance to burn back the black of winter. "Let us forge dawn together," she said, her Valyrian accent soft but ironed with purpose. Thus began the Council of Fire and Ice, held not in marble halls but in a rough-hewn cavern where dragonglass veins pulsed and the weirwood roots of the wall crept downward like veins of blood ice. Plans unfurled over firelit nights. Dragon riders and obsidian artillery, giants wielding tree trunks set aflame, children of forest channeling earth songs to crack glacier fields. The horn fragment lay at center of every murmured strategy, glimmering gold within black spirals. Promise or doom, no one yet knew. Ned found sleep rarely those nights, but when it came the weirwood's face followed him. Eyes bleeding slow rivers down bark cheeks, mouth unmoving yet whispering in voice of wind. The pack must hold. One breaks, all fall. He woke chilled, clutched by foreboding. He kept this to himself, not even confiding in Catelyn when her letters arrived heavy with fears for their littlest ones, tucked safe yet restless in Winterfell's crypt-scented halls. On the eve of the second great battle, Ned walked the length of the wall's inner tunnel where dragonglass sconces burned blue rather than orange. He paused before racks of arrows, before casks of wildfire, before lines of free folk children handing out clay grenades of oil. He thought how many stories had led here. Arthur Dayne's blade at the Tower of Joy, Robert's swine hunt, Littlefinger's sly grin, Arya's first fencing lesson, a promise to a dying sister whose child now bore fire of kingship in his silvered eyes. All threads converged atop this frozen spine. He looked south once, where King's Landing glimmered far beyond hills, then north, where a curtain of violet light shimmered at horizon like door yet unopened. Somewhere out there the Night King marshaled new horrors, and inside Ned felt a strange stillness, as if his years had been but prelude. "Father," Jon said behind him, long claw resting across his shoulder. Snow whipped about his black hair. The white streak shone. "Whichever way tomorrow turns, know I kept faith." "As have I," Ned answered. He set gloved hand on Jon's forearm. "No matter what horns sound, hold the gate. One crack, all falls." Jon nodded. "I'll look for your banner. It flies beside Rob's." He smiled. Memory flared of 2 boys chasing each other across Winterfell roofwalks. Now they would meet the storm together. They parted without more words. Dawn glimmered faint through swirling flakes, shaping the world in silver shadows. Far below, dragons stretched vast wings, shaking frost from midnight scales. Giants beat shields. Children of the forest sang high sweet lament. Lightbringer emerged from scabbard one last time, branding snow crimson. Somewhere beyond the curtain of trees, a horn of ice answered, low and ancient, and the ground shuddered like a slumbering behemoth waking. Eddard Stark closed his eyes for heartbeat, felt Catelyn's warmth, felt Lyanna's plea, felt weight of those he had saved and those he had failed. He opened them to the horizon where night and day mingled. He breathed deep the coldest air of his life, then raised Long Sister above his head, letting the dawn's first pale ray strike its edge, turning dragonglass inlay into a bar of liquid amber. The cry he gave was wordless, rising into sky until dragons answered with flame, until men below took up the roar, until the wall itself seemed to tremble at the battle call of every house united. Thus the long night's second chapter opened, with the river of the world poised to flood or freeze. Whether dawn would widen or die none could know, but steel and ice, fire and root, oath and blood, all hallowed now, stood ready beneath banners stitched of direwolf and stag, dragon and rose, salmon and bear, united for the first time since the world was young. At their point rode a Northman whose honor had once been mocked as stone, now forged into blade glimmering true in winter light. And as that blade lowered, pointing toward the oncoming tide of shadow, the pack surged forward as one. Snowflakes spiraled like white embers from an unseen forge, drifting past the torchlit murder holes of Castle Black's eastern gate. Half a mile away, shadows gathered behind the ragged tree line. A serried host of frost-bleached wights standing ankle-deep in powdery snow, their ranks shivering in eerie, wordless anticipation. Behind them, specters of greater darkness moved. Tall figures armored in lacquered ice, a lumbering legion of undead giants wrapped in rag ropes of frozen sinew, and farther still, the glinting silhouette of Viserion the Night Dragon, his torn wing membranes crackling with veins of black lightning each time he flexed them against the swirling wind. On the wall's ramparts, Eddard Stark felt the ancient ice groan beneath his greaves. The sound rippled through the frozen keep like a dying heartbeat. He turned for one last look across the battlement. Jon Snow to his left, face half hidden behind a hood ruffed with snow leopard, Longclaw's pale blade, but pale no longer, for Sam Tarly's forge had inset the sword with a thin seam of dragonglass along its fuller, so that each gust of torchlight sparked flecks of stardark at the edge. To Ned's right stood Robb, gray wind snarling at the abyss below, the direwolf's breath puffing plumes like a smithy's bellows. Farther down, Stannis Baratheon raised Lightbringer overhead. The red sword flared brighter than a dawn that might never come. A hush as if the whole world inhaled. "Loose!" Jon bellowed. Obsidian-winded arrows shrieked from the ramparts. They traversed the midnight gulf in a black hail, punching through skulls, clavicles, collarbones, shattering whites to powder. But the dead advanced. Ice giants lifted mammoth-tusk shovels and slammed them into the frozen earth, cracking foot-wide fissures that skittered toward the gate's foundation. In the sky, Viserion shrieked, a sound like glaciers grinding, and swooped low, spewing a torrent of negative flame. Snow and timber evaporated to brittle ash wherever that shadow fire touched. Jon's ballista crews loosed twin harpoons, the first Caromed off the beast's crystalline chest. The second punched through a membrane tear and snagged on bone. But the Night Dragon only slowed, banking wide, dragging the iron line in a whipping arc that toppled a watchtower in a scream of steel and masonry. Below, the living countercharged. Giants Mag Martundo Weg and Gorn the Tall waded into the breach, swinging tree-trunk mauls wrapped in dragonglass spikes. Each blow pulped a dozen shambling corpses. Wildling spearwives raced between their legs, lobbing clay oil bombs that exploded into green stagfire. A W. Ildfire variant Davos's alchemists had tempered with ravenstone powder so the burn would cling to ice. Flame raced up skeletal limbs, devouring sinew. Still the dead pressed, heedless of pain. Ned's voice thundered across the din ladders, dragonglass tips on every pole. Wooden shafts bristling with obsidian protrusions were thrust skyward, bracing against the wall's parapet. The first wave of wights to reach those ladders found themselves impaled, then lever-flipped back upon their fellows. Yet higher up, through curtains of snow, 3 white walkers glided on frost-crafted skates. Leaping cracks, swords of mirror ice raised high. They seized rope lines and began cleaving them methodically, unhooking ballista anchors before turning to scale toward the rampart. Melisandre stepped forward atop a parapet of ice 50 feet above the yard, the ruby at her throat glowing like magma through snow's ghosts. She spoke Valyrian words that curdled the wind. Flames burst from the brazier circle she'd etched, 12 iron braziers filled with oil, arranged in a spiral of power. Fire leapt from bowl to bowl, forming a fiery helix that mounted into the sky. The walkers paused, their sword arms trembling. One lifted its face, 2 cold stars flaring in a mask of glacier skin. A hissed voice of shattering icicles. From below, a chorus of a song surged. Children of the forest, skin the color of moss and snow, had emerged from tunnels beneath the old heart tree transplanted to Castle Black's yard. They hammered carved wooden staves into permafrost, chanting in tongues older than men. The ground answered. Roots split ice and thrust upward, tangling around giant zombie calves, yanking them to their knees. Robb lifted horn to lips, a war horn carved of weirwood, its spiral sheathed in bronze etched with runes. He blew. The sound rose like thunder rolling across still fjords. Direwolves howled. Giants roared. The flayedman banners carried by Karstark deserters quailed and steadied. Now they bore new sigils. Grey Kraken-Wolf hybrid Ned had approved to mark Jon's coalition of Watch and Wildling both. Viserion looped again, Shadowfire burning trenches into ice. But Daenerys Targaryen's trio of living dragons answered, Drogon, Regal, and the younger she'd named Aegon. They filled the night with overlapping roars, wings beating hurricanes. Drogon's flame, crimson and gold, met Viserion's darkness midair. The shockwave blew a hole in clouds and shattered frost plates clinging to the wall's lip. Regal and Aegon flanked, strafing white ranks with emerald and cobalt flame, melting undead like wax dolls. Ned forced his focus groundward. Grapnels. Archers fired iron hooks tethered to chains down into white knots. Giants hauled the lines, ripping swathes of corpses apart. Steam erupted as bones snapped, melted snow boiling off armor. Jon spotted the 3 walkers scaling rope near the eastern tower. He vaulted parapet, sliding down an ice chute carved by earlier blasts. At base he met them. Their blades shimmered unnatural, reflecting no torchlight. Jon swung Longclaw. The dragonglass seemed sparked. First clash rang high, brittle. He parried second strike, pivoted under third, slashed lateral. Longclaw's dragonglass edge cleaved straight into an icy breastplate, shattering Walker in cascade of snow diamonds. The other 2 fell back a step, cold fury in blue stare. Ned raced down Boarback stairs and hit the yard as one walker lunged at Jon. He drew Long Sister, northern steel, pattern-welded, with runes of warmth hammered between layers, dragonglass serrations along one side. Their duel sounded like breaking glaciers. Ned rolled, coming up behind a walker, stabbing under its armpit. The creature stiffened, shrieked, exploded into shards. Second one pivoted at Ned, but gray wind leapt from above, seizing the walker's sword arm. Dragonglass teeth sank. Wolf and ice exploded sideways. Crystals pinwheeled. A surge of whites crashed into the breach, undeterred by the fall of their masters. But the effect rippled. With each walker's demise, another wedge of undead collapsed lifeless. Ned glimpsed opportunity. Drive forward. Take their leaders. Tormund Giantsbane rallied freefolk, leading charge with obsidian-tipped halberd. Giant Gorn hurled a white giant body like a 20-foot snowball, flattening for rows. Wildling spearwives vaulted over fallen forms, plunging knives into walker revivers. Bran, high within Weirwood dais inside the gatehouse, slipped into warg trance. His mind streamed through raven flocks swirling above battle, then dove into the soul of summer, then soared further, into Drogon's amber eyes. For an instant wolf, raven, and dragon sight merged, giving Bran panoramic survey. He saw the Night King himself, a kilometer north, emerging from gates of black ice conjured midair. The horn fragment dangled from a chain upon his breast. He raised long glaive, commanding undead with silent thought. Bran called out across warg wind. The horn! The chain! Jon heard through some link of blood. He sprinted to Stannis. We need Lightbringer. Cut the chain around the Night King's neck. Stannis, grim, nodded. Drogon banked overhead. Daenerys perched astride. Jon waved her down. Amid furnace wings, he and Daenerys conferred quickly. Plan formed. Viserion circled again, bearing down. Daenerys kicked spurs. Drogon climbed to intercept. Jon clung behind her, Longclaw strapped crosswise, body braced against ridges of black scales. Storm wind tore tears from his eyes. Below, Ned organized final push. He, Robb, Brienne, Tormund, Giant Gorn, Spearwives, Karstark Outriders, and Watch Pikemen formed Spearhedge Wedge. Children of Forest advanced behind, chanting to rouse root and rock. They slammed into white tide, clearing channel straight north. The Night King measured them with head tilt, then raised glaive. Snow cycloned. Spears of black ice javelined out, skewering 3 giants. Ned ducked behind Grey Wind's flank, felt arrow of frost hiss past ear. Drogon roared overhead, angled dive. Jon unslung dragonglass javelin, edges etched runes by Melisandre's night fire. As Drogon leveled behind Night King, Jon hurled. The spear streaked like comet, but Night King spun, swatted with glaive. Javelin exploded premature, showering shards. Night King raised palm. A wave of necrocold spooled outward, sudden as winter gale. Drogon faltered. Frost rimes spread along wing. Daenerys clutched saddle, shouted Dracarys, but flame guttered. From wall's rampart, Bran warged deeper, into weirwood root, into heart of wall. He touched ancient magic sleeping within black ice. The wall hummed, webs of glyph etched by children ages past shimmered. A pulse of ward power surged along ice into Night King's frost wave, nullifying twist. Drogon recovered, banking. Suddenly, Stannis galloped through breach atop a black courser, Lightbringer aflame, Melisandre sprinting beside on foot, red gown swirling. Whites parted before swords' heat. Ned's wedge shielded them. Melisandre chanted, Azor ahai! Light for dawn! Fire leapt along runes of dragonglass embedded in Ned's armor, Robb's gauntlets, Brienne's shield, tattooing them in crimson glow. Night King advanced. In one skeletal hand he gripped the golden black horn. In the other, glaive wrought from the heart of a glacier. He seemed to float above snow, untouched. Stannis spurred forward. Ned and Brienne flanked, Robb behind. The Night King swung glaive, Brienne raised fortress shield. Impact cracked steel rim sent her skidding back.
Ned parried upward slash.
Dragonglass shards shaved off tip of walker steel, singing like banshee. Robb lunged at chain but frost aura repelled him. Drogon shrieked. He fell again, forced ground by accumulating ice. Daenerys slid from saddle, rolled, drew Valyrian Arak gifted by Dothraki. She charged beside Jon. Night King thrust. Lightbringer met glaive. White and red sparks fountained. The horn dangled inches away. Suddenly, a piercing note split air, sound of Bran's green horn. A weirwood whistle carved at dawn of first men. Roots erupted under Night King's feet. Thorned vines of icy wood wrapping ankles. He paused fraction. Jon seized moment, slashing Longclaw across chain. Obsidian seam cleaved. Chain broke. Horn tumbled into snow. Melisandre darted, scooped horn, thrust it high, ruby blazing. She cried phrase lost to men. Valos Jellin. The horn shone gold, then melted to liquid light, pouring fire into snow. The ground erupted in flame, pushing back frost. Night King reeled, aura flickering. Stannis plunged Lightbringer into gap at Night King's breast armor. The sword hissed deep. Cracks skittered across ice skin. Night King screamed, a sound of all blizzards shredding. His form fractured, first spiderweb fissures, then plates sloughing. Wind howled out of wound, shrieking souls escaping. With thunderclap he shattered, blasting ring of diamond dust. Instantly undead across field collapsed. Giants slumped. Whites toppled. Phantom war mammoths crumbled to ice rubble. Viserion above convulsed, wings faltering, then crashed into forest. Inert. Silence. Only crackle of wildfire torches. The moan of wind.
Ned staggered, Brett plumbing.
Snow still fell, but softer now, flakes swirling like surrendered ghosts. Jon steadied Daenerys, her hands shook. Lightbringer extinguished, faint ember glow, but still whole. Melisandre's ruby dulled, cracked. She smiled, spent. Tormund hooped. Giants roared. Watch brothers stared, disbelief shimmering. Children of forest pressed palms to snow, feeling technology of roots settle. Bran's raven swarm spiraled, then perched along parapet as if finished long flight. Summer bounded to Ned, muzzle nudging thigh. Stannis sheathed blade, glanced sky where aurora faded, replaced by bruised dawn. It is done, he said, voice hoarse. Perhaps, Ned answered. He scans still forms. But dawn must be tended, else night returns. Rob knelt, brushing ice crystals from wreck of Night King, shards already sublimating to steam. Among fragments lay thin disk of carved ice, mirror polished. He lifted, saw faint reflection of his own weary face. What is this? Bran, wheeled forward by Sam, eyes swirling. Seed of winter's heart. Bury it beneath weirwood so roots remember, or cast to molten fire. Choice shapes ages. Ned accepted disk, heavy despite smallness. Within its depth he saw swirl of storms, glint of endless night, but also spark of fire. He closed fingers. Let the old gods keep it. Deep where they sing. 3 days of pyres. Wildling and giant, ranger and Karstark, spearwife and watchbrother. Ash rose together. Daenerys's dragons melted frost off ramparts, their fire gentle now. Each evening, musicians among free folk and north played horns of mammoth and lute of birch, weaving dirges. On fourth dawn, sun fully cleared horizon for first time in 40 days. Ice glittered like fields of jewels. Jon stood at wall's lip with Daenerys, looking south. Ned approached. King Stannis summons us to council, he said. Realm must know. Jon nodded. And choose what thrones mean, now that winter's wages paid. Daenerys looked to Ned. I do not want throne forged by corpses. If the realm wishes me queen, they must see I stand among them, not above. She glanced at dragons ostensibly preening on parapet. Fire now heals. Ned smiled faint. Let's heal together. They descended to courtyard where lords and chiefs assembled beneath banners stitched of direwolf, dragon, stag, kraken, sunspear, and rose. Stannis stepped forward, Lightbringer bound in cloth of dusk. He raised empty hand. Night has broken. Voice carried. Lives were price, and price will honor. By light of dawn, I call great council of realm at Winterfell come first full thaw. Houses may choose whom to follow, Baratheon, Targaryen, Stark, or peace alone. Till then, armies disband, grain shared, wounds mended. Murmur rippled. Lady Meage nodded. Garland Tyrell offered rose baton. Tormund spat then grinned wide. Peace smelled like mead.
Ned stepped beside Stannis.
Winter fell upon all. Let spring belong to all. He raised glass disc. Sun flashed rainbow through. This heart of winter sleeps now in roots of the world. May we never wake it with petty vengeance. Cheers rose. Horns answered. Dragons roared. The long march south resembled pilgrimage more than army withdrawal. Roads once choked by war now hosted caravans of seed, livestock, artisans. Giants strode at edges, clearing deadwood. Children of forest tended wounded trees. At every holdfast, small folk pressed forward with lanterns carved into wolf and dragon shapes, lighting path.
Snorisek in be in, Krokuk spiak soy.
At Winterfell, Maester Caliot rang the great bell. Rickon, taller, greeted father with shaggy grin. Bran's new tower room soared above keep, wrapped in carved ravens. Catelyn pressed Ned's face, tears of relief. Sansa embraced father, her gown's simple wool now, leadership of Weaver's Guild etched in calm posture. Arya demonstrated quicksilver footwork to gathered guards. Even Hodder cheered. Council of Spring convened in Winterfell's rebuilt Great Hall. Lords of 7 kingdoms seated. Tywin Lannister present humbled, oath sworn. Doran Martell brought sunshine wine. Yara Greyjoy coughed salt air within stone walls for first time, promising ships for grain. 3 days of debate culminated in corridor with open roof. Bran addressed assembly through Ravencall magic, reminding them of Pax cost. When ballot taken, Realm declared new model, Triune Regency. Stannis as Ward of Laws, Daenerys as Ward of Dragons and Dawn, and Eddard Stark as Ward of North and Roots. Crown left empty, kept in sept for remembrance. Ned accepted, heavy yet right. He watched Jon kneel before mosaic of swirling sigils, swear oath not to throne but to living. Daenerys touched his shoulder. Their fate twined. Spring burst at last. Wild green shimmered across barrow fields. Children planted dragonglass orchards. blacksmith's refashioned sword to plowshare edges tipped with starstone. At night, the aurora still danced but softer, as though sky rested. One quiet evening Ned walked God's wood of Winterfell. Hearttree bled gently, carving new red paths across pale bark. He knelt, placed hand. Whisper of leaf answered, promise kept. He rose to see family gathered. Catelyn with tottering grandson in arms, Sansa's firstborn. Arya leaning on spear, telling Rickon of distant bravos. Robb mending war saddle while grey wind dozed. Bran in wheeled seat studying scroll of ancient runes. Jon entering glade, cloak lined now with silver dragon scale. Lanterns cast gold nets across faces.
Ned exhaled slowly.
The war for Dawn had ended, but Dawn itself was not destination. It was beginning, a line of flame to be fed with compassion or starve under neglect. He would feed it day by day, root by root. Snowmelt dripped from branches, each drop catching torchlight like a falling star. Somewhere beyond walls, cranes croaked first migration call. The pack had held. Winter remembered, but spring at last sang louder. The warmth of first spring unfurled in cautious breaths across the north, tiptoeing through lingering drifts like a visitor unsure of welcome. Thin ribbons of meltwater threaded the Barrow Downs, carrying pebbles and last year's pine needles toward the tumblestone. The wall, once a glimmering monolith of terror, sweated beneath those timid rays, its parapets trickling streams that shimmered in morning light. Farther south, crocuses forced pale faces through the black loam outside Winterfell's east gate, and sparrows gathered on crenellations to dare a tentative chorus. Yet even as sunlight brushed the frost-scoured battlements, Eddard Stark sensed that the air between stones still quivered with memories of screaming winds and shattered ice, like a bell rung too hard to ever lie silent again. He rose daily before dawn to cross the silent courtyards, habit pulling him toward the godswood where the Hearttree's face wept sap that smelled of snowmelt and iron. Each morning he found Bran already there, wheelchair parked beside the silent pool, gray eyes transfixed by secret currents no other eyes could perceive. Once, under a sky painted pink and lavender by sunrise, Ned had asked his son whether the voices of the roots still troubled him. Bran's answer had been simple. Not troubled, father, just instructed. There was no fear in the boy's voice anymore, only the vast calm of someone long finished with childhood. Ned had not pressed further. Some truths were best embraced by those chosen to bear them. Preparations for the Great Council consumed every waking hour. Winterfell bulged with banners from every corner of the realm, their colors fluttering like a field of unruly wildflowers. Dornish oranges and purples snapped on the same line as the grey Krakenwolf of Jon's Night Watch coalition. Baratheon stags shared hooks with Tyrell roses, and the silver trio of Targaryen dragons wheeled in embroidered flight beside the direwolf that 1,000 southern children had finally learned to honor instead of fear. Too many houses to list sent envoys. Those that had survived either the lion's ambitions or the winter's hunger. Some came for reparations, some for promises, some to watch for the faintest sign of weakness in old rivals or new overlords. Catelyn orchestrated the guest logistics with the ruthless efficiency of a marcher lady, who had once run Riverrun's harvests through 4 seasons of siege. She requisitioned every spare bed in the new keep, rehung progressively grander tapestries to mask scaffolds still hiding the scars of Ramsay's conquest, and posted rosters of meal duties for scullery maids who would otherwise have fainted at the thought of serving soup to half the known world at once. When she required still more beds, she commandeered the half-repaired Maester's Tower, issuing extra bearskins as consolation for leaky walls. Ser Roderick, finally retired from drilling recruits, oversaw hallway patrols with one of Littlefinger's confiscated braziers burning at the butt of his halberd. For any troublemakers, he explained with sly glee. Eddard trusted all of them to manage the day-to-day tasks. His charge was subtler, to keep the room where histories bent around a single table from fracturing under the weight of so many intentions. That hall, freshly roofed with copper-capped rafters, bore a new centerpiece. An oval oak board the size of 2 wagon beds and carved with the outline of Westeros. Giants from Skagos had felled the tree, and children of the forest had inlaid the grain with threads of dragonglass that marked the wall, the neck, and the twisting rivers of the Vale. Around its edge, empty seats awaited the voices that would shape everything to follow. The first to arrive was Tywin Lannister. His litter reached the Winterfell Bailey at dusk, the gold lion on its curtains dulled by the scorch of recent humility. He emerged unarmored, wearing travel-stained leathers instead of gilded plate, the famous cloak trimmed with sable rather than crimson silk. He bowed to Ned, not low, but deeper than any present would once have imagined. "Lord Stark," he intoned, "the rock presents itself to judgment without reservations." Ned answered the gesture with Winterfell's quiet courtesy and led him to quarters flanked by Karstark guards. Tywin did not protest. The Dornish delegation arrived 2 mornings later, Prince Trystane on a dapple palfrey and Aryan Martell riding side saddle upon a pale sand steed, accompanied by a dozen sun-spear spearmen whose gilded spear points rattled like castanets. They came under banners of the sun and spear crossed with the silver dragon of Daenerys, for Dorne had thrown its lot with the Targaryen queen as soon as Daenerys' sails had touched the water gardens. Neither prince nor princess offered regrets for the past. Instead, Arya greeted Ned with a coy smile and a leather-wrapped amphora of spiced date wine. She teased that one draft would thaw 10 winters. Ned accepted graciously and assigned them apartments with warm floors, an unheard-of luxury to the southern folk who shivered beneath their sun-cloth cloaks. The Tyrells rode in next, Lady Olenna at the head of a floral caravan that filled the entire Eastgate courtyard with the perfume of spring. They gifted sacks of saffron, bushels of dried lemons, and crates of glass jars stuffed with preserved roses. Olenna's grandsons trailed her like reluctant petals. Garland offered a sword salute to Ned, reminding him that roses bore thorns sharper than gold. Ned only smiled. The realm would need both the bloom and the barbs. The Ironborn, Yara Greyjoy foremost, arrived with far less pageantry. They hauled wagons of ship timber beams from pine stands near Deepwood Motte, silent threats disguised as tribute. Ned greeted them with a handshake and a morning meeting to review shipping lanes. Yara showed rare diplomacy. "Kraken tentacles curl quick around coin," she said. "We'll keep pirates from your merchant convoys, for a share of the cargo, of course." Ned signed the ledger. Peace often cost less than war. Tormund Giantsbane led the Free Folk delegation. 5 giants, 7 spearwives in dyed wolf furs, and 200 children chattering in Skagosi and the Old Tongue. They camped beyond the outer moat, raising hide tents and roasting aurochs over pits that perfumed the entire county. People of the north marveled to see a giant pass ale to a little Crannog boy while debating the optimum pitch for a sled runner. Ned felt his heart swell. Fences, literal and cultural, were falling. Jon Snow arrived last, traveling east with Daenerys and her dragons at half-mast altitude to avoid spooking sheep. They landed in a blizzard swirl that melted as soon as Drogon's wings beat. Their silhouettes ringed by hoarfrost turned to rainbow mist. Castle blacksmiths had fitted dragon saddles with blunted spikes to avoid damaging roof tiles. Even so, for stable hands fainted when Aegon folded wings the size of Winterfell's Great Hall. The dragons settled in a newly dredged hot spring basin outside the walls, content to roast deer brought by Wintertown trappers who bragged of living to tell the tale. Council opened on the day following, when snows melted enough for stone walkways to run with fresh water. Inside the new hall, fires roared from braziers of hammered bronze shaped like dire wolf jaws. The odor of burning red spruce disguised the sharper tang of newly laid lime mortar. The lords took their seats by order of precedence. Or, perhaps, by the order in which the world now ranked threat to survival. Stannis at the head, Daenerys across, Ned to Stannis' left. Tywin, grim, at Daenerys' flank. Between them sat Jon Snow, his night watch cloak shaved to formal half-cape lined with northern gold mink. If anyone questioned his place, the silence of the room argued louder. No minutes were kept. Maesters recorded only rulings reached, not the invective spent reaching them. But those nights wound longer than siege winters. They argued grain tariffs, dragon patrol routes, reparations from the Reach to the Stormlands, the fate of castle keeps raised during the War of 5 Kings, oath-breaking penalties for Karstark stragglers, and 1,000 lines of credit. They debated whether emissaries should sail at once to Valyria's smoking ruins to glean hidden dragonglass. They wrangled over Bolton lands. Tywin insisted they revert to the Iron Throne for redistribution. Bran, speaking through Summer's low growl, countered that the land belonged to nature now, for Bolton blood had poisoned it beyond men's rights. There was even a raucous shouted hour when Tormund demanded a seat for the giants, speaker to the small, which nearly dissolved into a brawl until Lady Olenna produced a lemon cake and forced peace. Throughout it, Stannis balanced pragmatism with iron principle. Daenerys tempered his rigidity with visionary flames. Ned moderated, weaving respect and candor into quiet admonitions. Jon, surprisingly, found his voice as mediator between Ironborn brashness and Dornish pride. He had learned at the Wall that every commander needed listening before they could follow. On the fourth evening, Tywin rose to address the Horn of Winter Disk, buried now under roots of the heart tree per Bran's edict. His voice, hoarse with age rather than arrogance, offered emotion. Melt the disk in the hottest dragon flame, scatter its pieces in each of the 7 major rivers, so that no hand might craft it anew. Bran objected, the roots must remember, else the world forgets why it fears the dark. Daenerys seconded Tywin. Some memories burned brighter once freed. The vote split. Ned abstained until the last, then sided with Bran. Sansa, unexpectedly allowed to speak as Weaver's guild mistress, offered the compromise that prevailed. The disc would remain within the crypt's deepest chamber, sealed by both Valyrian steel locks and children of the forest wards. Memory preserved, temptation buried. With that decided, momentum shifted. Edicts flowed, annual fairs rotating among the 7 kingdoms to share harvest bounties. A third of all dragonglass mined north of the neck dedicated to relic guardianship, not weapons. A river patrol of Ironborn and Dornish ships to keep slavers from Noth. New codices banning flaying, wildfire stockpiling, and forced betrothals. Big oaths were carved into the rim of the oak map table by Brienne's dagger, then inked in sap collected from the heart tree at dawn, each lord or lady pressing a finger to seal with blood. When the last line dried, each clause shimmered faintly. Bran swore the woods had accepted the terms. The final matter, the crown itself, hovered like a storm on clear horizon. Stannis stood. I sought a throne to protect realm. We have found unity greater than jewel-encrusted band. Let Westeros know a different power now binds us. He unsheathed Lightbringer and laid it across the map at south edge of Dorne. Daenerys mirrored him. She removed the ancient Targaryen diadem from her braids and rested it on the veil. Ice and fire balanced. Ice turned to Ned. He felt old bones stir, as though some wind glimpsed only by wolves passed through the hall. He shook his head. No crown for wolves, he said, but I will tend the roots. Instead, at Lady Olenna's suggestion, the Great Council ratified the Triune Charter officially. Stannis styled himself Lord Steward of the Realm. Daenerys accepted mantle of Protector of the Dawn. Ned became Guardian of Roots and Rivers, responsible for watch over all natural wards against magic, both living and dead, trees, springs, mountain passes, and, by extension, the keepers who watched them. Each office held veto only in its sphere. Decisions required 2 of 3 signatures, else moot reconvened. Many called it unwieldy. Bran whispered it the first stable tripod since the Dawn Age. Celebration followed, subdued by grief yet aglow with relief. Cooks roasted whole herds of goat and boar. Dornish harpers played flutes made of petrified seashells. Ironborn drummers hammered deck planks into tables. Giants stomped dance steps that rattled rafters. In the new library wing, Samwell Tarly convened maesters from every citadel to catalogue living memories of the long night before slip of time dimmed them. Arya sparred with Brienne beneath lantern boughs while children of both north and south lined railings, cheering every clang. In quiet hallway, Sansa approached her father. She carried satin bundle. Inside lay a circlet woven from winter roses, blue as dawn sky, fastened by fine silver wire. A crown no one can see from throne, she said. She lifted it and brushed it onto Ned's graying hair. Guardian of Roots deserves wreath of the soil. Ned's eyes misted. He kissed her brow, mindful of how far she had traveled from restless dreamer to quiet pillar. Days flowed into weeks. Delegations departed. leaving Winterfell cleaner than they found it. For each group had insisted on repairing some part of the keep. The Manderleys funded a fish stair in the moat. The Yunkish merchants Daenerys brought laid mosaic tiles of red and gold in the bathhouse. Dornish masons carved new gargoyles along merlins that spat meltwater from dragon mouths. As summer's first buds sprouted, Ned found himself able to walk whole afternoons without hearing a hammer's clang or a sword's ring. He visited Wintertown, where free folk and northern small folk had begun trading crafts. He watched spearwives dye cloth with madder root, young crows haggling for bright tunics to replace tattered black. He witnessed a giant child pat a skittish horse so gently the beast forgot to bolt. At night he returned to the gardens behind the maester's tower, newly grown with heat from old hot spring vents. Greenhouses of glass brick raised oranges for Elian monks and figs for reach priests who had never tasted north-grown fruit. One evening, gray clouds parted to reveal the first true sunset not veiled by threat in years. Ned climbed First Keep's highest turret. There Jon waited, cloak fluttering. Together they watched sun melt into a horizon free of dragonfire or white-blue aurora. Jon broke silence. "I wonder how long peace lasts." "As long as men remember dawn cost more than night," Ned answered. "Will they?" "Not all. But we do." He clapped Jon's shoulder. "Stories will hold them to it. And if they forget, then stories will remind." Ned's voice took on solemn cadence. "But if stories fail, we stand again. That is our oath." Far below, the heart tree rustled in wind like wolf's low growl. Ned inhaled scent of sap and stone and distant dragon. It was not victory exactly. Victory suggested something ended. This was continuance, a breathing in of renewal. Robb's laughter drifted from courtyard where he wrestled giant pup of Grey Wind's second litter. Bran's voice carried from window, reading Sam's draft chronicle aloud. Arya's silver bells jangled as she crossed bridges to Spar Hall. Catelyn's lullaby poured from Solar where she rocked grandchild. Life spun on. Ned closed eyes, pictured Lyanna under blue winter roses. He imagined her smiling, whispering, "You kept it." He opened eyes to north wind combing towers with gentle fingers. Snow yet ringed peaks, but valley grasses greened. Guardian of roots set one palm on granite crenellation warmed by sun. He tasted lingering metal of ancient fears and sweet tang of hope. And for first time since he'd escorted a silent girl named Arya beneath King's Landing's shadows, he allowed himself a long breath. Winter indeed would come again, but now the realm possessed memory, alliance, and watchful roots stretching deep. Eddard Stark turned his gaze south where King's Road shimmered and farmers planted. He nodded once, as though acknowledging some unseen companion. Then he descended stairs toward Hearthlight, ready to speak to his children and their children and every wayfarer who would listen about wolves and stags, dragons and giants, ice and dawn, and about promises, fragile yet unbroken, that even night itself could not devour.